Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former fourth-string college quarterback and mediocre middle relief pitcher who earned himself a film and media studies degree. Now I'm a single dad who loves to talk New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, TV, and comedy. On today's episode, we're going to be recapping the New York Giants free agency haul, and we will be previewing the NFL draft. It's going to be a long one. Last up we have to catch up on. So let's not waste any more frickin' time and get right into it. Without further ado, let's get it started up in here. Last time I talked to you guys was the early January. It was right after John Mara, Giants co-owner, came out and said that he would be retaining general manager Joe Schoen and head coach Brian Daboll. And though it wasn't in that same press conference, they ended up keeping defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. I disagree with the move, and I was pretty down at that point in time. And I didn't think that we had, seeing the opponents that we have for 2025, I didn't give this team, I didn't have a lot of confidence in this team to win any games, much less enough to save Daboll and Schoen. We're now in a very interesting situation where free agency haul was pretty nice. Not bad. Addressed some positions of need, upgraded some positions. The defense, at least, looks like it's going to take a big step forward and could take even another big step forward after the draft or during the draft. I've kind of warmed up to the idea that we're going to have more of a fighting chance, despite the fact that I think we have the toughest schedule in 2025. So for the most part, I've agreed with a lot of the decisions that the team has made. Let's get into the Senior Bowl, the East-West Shrine Bowl. East-West Shrine Bowl, I don't even know why they play this thing. It's just nowhere to be found. I don't think it aired ever on actual TV. There was nothing on YouTube. I had to do an advanced search on X, and just to find there was probably 3 highlights from the entire game. There's no video on demand, no replays, no clips or highlights. Very weird. All I know is that Shedeur Sanders did not play in that game. He also did not play in the Senior Bowl game. Mike Kafka, Giants OC. I don't know how this guy is still on the staff. I don't know. I mean, I can't. I hope he releases a novel about his experiences with the Giants, because it must be a doozy. I mean, this guy has been just put through the ringer and must be one of the most confused people and personnel with the Giants. So he's the head coach of the one team in the Senior Bowl. He had his play calling duties stripped from him in 2023 and 2024, and he dials up an opening drive touchdown for his squad on a trick play. So, I know that, part of John Mara's speech when he announced he was retaining Daboll was that play calling probably not going to be a Daboll thing this year, and that he'll probably have to give it back to Mike Kafka. What's interesting is in late January, Connor Hughes, who's a NFL insider reporter for SNY, he posted on X, let me recap this for my own sanity. Mike Kafka was the Giants play caller in 2022, but not running his offense, the one he'd have implemented if given full control of the scheme. He was calling Daboll's offense from Buffalo, which is, I hope that's not the case going into this year. Let's just let Kafka cook, man. Let's just see what he's got up his sleeve. He cannot do any worse than what we've done. He cannot do any worse. In 2023, Daboll got mad and yanked the play calling from Kafka, gave it to Shea Tierney, quarterback's coach. Again, Shea Tierney's another guy that's what warrants him getting the play calling duties over Kafka? I guess because he can call Daboll's offensive scheme from Buffalo better, But at the same time, it's we're still not anywhere where we need to be offensively. Joe Schoen ended up in the coaching headsets after multiple complaints over game day operations. And then in 2024, Daboll took play calling back for himself. Talked openly about all the different offensive-minded coaches who called their own plays. Kafka was essentially stripped of any actual say in the offense. The offense regressed even more in just about every measure. So now Daboll's giving play calling back to Kafka. Yeah, it's dysfunctional. And, you would think that there are just you talk about pros and cons. There are so many cons. There's just like no pros when it comes to Daboll and Schoen and like how they operate and the level of dysfunction and just I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a good administration in my opinion. But I think if Kafka has the play calling this year should be like this year should not have any restraints or constraints. Everyone do while out. This is probably your last hurrah as a coaching staff. Just let Kafka cook, man. Just let him do whatever the hell he's got going on that bean of his. And Daboll Daboll can provide input during the week, but on game days, it's like, unless it's something that is completely egregious, and maybe that was the case in 2023, but I just would let Kafka not call Daboll's offense. Kafka do his thing. Let's just see what he's got. Why do they keep, this is what I don't understand. This is why I think he must be confused. Why are you going to strip play calling from me, but then you're not going to let me go somewhere else? Like, do you want me here or not? Can I do my thing or not? It's what is this? Like, if I don't know, it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I just can't understand it. And I assume I would love to know, like, give Mike Kafka a shot of truth serum and be like, dude, what is going on? The Pro Bowl, what are we doing with the Pro Bowl? I cannot believe. We're at the point now. It's like, well, if we're not even going to get on the field in full pads and play, like, why are we doing these stupid friggin' games? Why? Why are we doing these? You want to talk about like, oh, you're worried about getting hurt in full contact on the field. Okay. You can easily just get just as hurt doing all these stupid games, like the shuttle relays and stuff like that. Like, whatever. So I have a proposal. And I know this will never happen, but I don't know. Society collapses or is on the brink of collapse, judging by a lot of the movies from the 80s that projected what the future would look like. The Running Man. This idea could come to fruition. Rollerball. Each player selected to the Pro Bowl gets to choose one fan from their team to represent them in a full contact Pro Bowl. So Dexter Lawrence gets elected to the Pro Bowl, selected to the Pro Bowl team. He then gets to choose amongst all Giants fans, and they can submit audition tapes or maybe even have tryouts. Dexter Lawrence can host tryouts. They send in audition tapes, highlight tapes, whatever. Dexter Lawrence says, I select you. Now, it's a fan, okay? We're not talking about, a guy that has played in the UFL. No one can have played any kind of football. I want to say after high school, but that might be a little too rough. Maybe after college. It's like you stopped playing after college. That qualifies you. You are then eligible to play in the Pro Bowl. I think that would be hilarious. This format that they have now obviously doesn't work. It's just lame. It's just super lame. And I don't understand the appeal. I don't think anyone's really watching it. And so to me, it's like, let's just get weird with it. I know that the NHL, instead of the All-Star game, they had like a Four Nations challenge that kind of took off and went viral. So, each league is just trying to figure it out. The NBA All-Star ratings were down. So it's like, we're just trying to figure out like how to get people back and more involved. And this could be a way. Some news that I just, again, I haven't talked to you since early January. Some news items that went down during that time frame from, in the past 3 months. Micah Parsons is pissed that the Giants didn't draft him. Ryan Dunleavy reported that Parsons still thinks about former Giants GM Dave Gettleman trading out of pick 11 when he was on the draft board, saying it makes it personal. Quote, I'll never forget it. Honestly, playing next to Dexter Lawrence, I'd probably have 60 career sacks already. Fact. Quote, the Giants lied to me. People don't know this. They told me if I fell to 11 that they was going to pick me. So that was in an interview with some sports talk show. BMAC Sports Talk. My God. In terms of like all-time draft blunders, like it's funny. Gettleman drafted 4 all-pro players in three drafts from 2018 to 2020. Saquon Barkley, Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence. But yet he also signed Kenny Golladay, one of the worst free agent contracts in Giants history, at least, if not the worst. And then he drafted Kadarius Toney, traded out of that 11th pick to draft Kadarius Toney, who he traded a year later. So, I don't know that it would be that dramatic a turnaround for the Giants if Micah Parsons is on the team since 2021, but goddamn, something to build around. Definitely a building block, a foundation, if you will. And, I don't think the Giants would be in the position they are now, for sure. I know, hot take. Look out. But Micah Parsons on the Giants. Oh, man. Ugh. So, yeah, you just cannot keep missing on draft picks in the first 3 rounds. And we just have consistently. So, I read this in the Scoop City newsletter from The Athletic. After the Eagles fired Chip Kelly at the end of the 2015 season, they handed GM Howie Roseman the reins for personnel decisions. And now Philly has made 3 Super Bowls in the last 9 seasons since, all without a generational quarterback, which I thought was like kind of shots fired at Jalen Hurts. You're paying the guy $50 million a year, and I think he just won the Super Bowl MVP. But he's not a generational quarterback. Eagles fans still don't like him. It's so funny. I just remember, like, I've now lived here for almost 4 years in this apartment, and downstairs from me, my neighbor is a diehard Eagles fan, and every once in a while we'll run into each other, and he'll always say the same thing. Sorry about the Giants. It's like he doesn't even need. He can just do like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2 with the talk boy. He doesn't even need to say it. He just needs to record, sorry about the Giants. And then I say, yeah, and congrats on the Eagles. The Eagles look good. I always say, yeah, the Eagles look good. Jalen Hurts. And then he goes, Hurts. And it's just like, why don't you guys like that guy? You also didn't like Saquon Barkley, which I went off on my friend after the Eagles won. He texted the group just a picture of Saquon Barkley. And I'm just like, y'all, you and every other Eagles fan shit on me and the Giants for drafting him 2nd overall. And then you guys went out and gave him a contract that no one saw coming, very high, above what the Giants could afford. And even though I guess other team, we'll get into it, but other teams were giving out what appeared to be bigger contracts, but not enough, not as much guaranteed money. So, and you're going to sit there and hey, Eagles fans don't appreciate what you got. You hate Nick Sirianni. Guys led you to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. You didn't like you think drafting a running back at 2 is the worst, yet you sign him in free agency to one of the bigger contracts for running backs. You don't like Jalen Hurts, yet that just keeps winning, going to the Super Bowl. It's just like, what is wrong with you guys? So Miz. Meanwhile, the Giants, since Howie Roseman has has taken back the steering wheel, the Giants since 2015, in those 9 seasons from 2016 to 2024, have had 12 Pro Bowlers, 2 first-team All-Pros, 4 head coaches, 3 GMs, 2 playoff appearances, and 1 playoff win, along with a partridge in a pear tree. You compare that to the previous 9 seasons, so 2007 to 2015, we had 18 Pro Bowlers, 3 All-Pros, 1 head coach, 1 GM, 3 playoff appearances, 8 playoff wins, 2 Super Bowl wins. So, yeah, you had better talent. You had more consistency. Very interesting, though, only 3 playoff appearances, but when they get in the playoffs, they go on a run. So, in terms of results by GM, Roseman has made the playoff. His teams have made the playoffs in 8 of 15 seasons. That's 53% of the time. He has a 57% winning percentage in the regular season. He's 9-7 in the playoffs. Meanwhile, Jerry Reese made the playoffs in 4 of 11 seasons. So that's 36% of seasons. He was 52% winning percentage in the regular season, 8-2 in the playoffs. And then you have Gettleman, 0 playoffs in 4 seasons, 29% winning percentage, and Joe Schoen making the playoffs in 1 of 3 seasons, but has a 36% winning percentage, going 1-1 in the playoffs. So is Schoen better than Gettleman? Yeah, just by a little smidge. Although people would say that the 2022 success was thanks in large part to Gettleman's pieces, Gettleman's gets. Chad Forbes from the NFL insider Chad Forbes. He posted this on X in late February. Nobody points this out. The Buccaneers and Giants basically swapped Aaron Stinney for Ben Bredeson. Stinney started 3 games and played 193 snaps. Bredeson started every game and delivered almost 1,200 snaps. So that's another knock against Schoen, listen, maybe he operates better. It's fantastic that he brought analytics. He brought the organization into the 21st century and is using analytics. But it's the, letting Bredeson go and, pulling in Stinney. That's a loss. That's one you put that in the L column. And then this is another damning piece of evidence against Schoen. This is from Authentic on X. In early February, he tweeted, Saquon Barkley plus Mekhi Becton is 15.7 annual average value. Devin Singletary and John Runyon, 15.5 average annual value. Giants paid $26 million in guarantees. Eagles paid $20.7 million in guarantees. So again, it's a case of, Schoen is learning a lot of tough, hard lessons, I mean, and I think a lot of what happened last offseason dramatically, significantly, substantially impacted how he's operating in 2025. And I don't want to, people don't want me to beat a dead horse, and I get it. But we have to talk about Saquon Barkley's decision to leave the Giants and sign with the Eagles. Across the board, you have multiple former Giants teammates, but also Saquon's friends be like, how the hell did you let him out the building? How did you let him out the building? And I understand, a lot of this comes after a historic season where, he's offensive player of the year and rushing for 2,000 yards. Like, if he rushes for 1,000 yards, puts up numbers similar to what he put up with the Giants, I don't know that you have people coming out of the woodworks, but, So if the Giants, and this is from the New York Post article, that says, had the Giants decided to match Barkley's free agent contract offer from the Eagles last March, he would have re-signed to continue what he started. Had the Giants upped their own final offer to him, made in July 2023, by about $1.5 million guaranteed over 3 years, Barkley never would have reached free agency. Doesn't that blow your mind? Like, less than $2 million? You can't find $2 million in the couch over there in East Rutherford? Come on, dude. It's just such a small, I mean, for me, it's like a lifetime of work, but like for the Giants, it's a drop in the bucket, dude. It's pennies. And to think that is what is separating you from keeping the guy that you drafted, that you believe in, that you think can take you to the next level, that, I mean, if he plays his entire career with the Giants, he's guaranteed Ring of Honor, Giants Hall of Fame, and who knows? I don't know if that really means that much to players anymore. The Giants and Barkley's agents exchanged at least 15 offers and counters between November 2022 and July 2023. After originally seeking a 4-year deal, the Barkley's largest ask within a 3-year framework was north of $40 million, more than $26 million guaranteed, which the Giants countered at $39 million and $19.5 million guaranteed. Again, it's like it's a very interesting squabbling going on. It doesn't feel like they're that far apart. On the final day that the sides could negotiate under NFL rule until the 2023 season started, the Giants offered their highest guarantee of the process at $23 million. Barkley lowered his ask to $24.5 million. $1.5 million. That's all it was. That's all it was. And he wouldn't have hit free agency. He wouldn't be on the Eagles. Howie Roseman, and this is why I don't think Shane's the guy. And we're now in an interesting 2-year period, because I do think that we are going to be better this year. And now it's a matter of Mara wants to see improvement. 4 wins is technically an improvement over last season. 5 wins is an improvement. 6 wins is an improvement if you're going just by wins. Once you get into 7 and 10 and 8 and 9 category, and this is where I kind of hate what's going on, because I do think we need to move on to a new coach and GM. But with the signings we made in free agency, and with if Shane, and I think I have a decent amount of confidence in him to pull off a very nice draft haul, because the way that the draft class is set up across our positions of need, I think that we're going to come away with we're going to have a top 10 defense. If he picks the right guys, we have, I think, 7 or 8 picks. If he comes away from this draft with a D tackle, an edge, a corner, a guard, a tackle, maybe a quarterback, and a linebacker, pretty good, dude. That's a pretty good haul. It's a pretty good draft, as long as you obviously you have to make the right choices at those positions. But you're looking at and I know I said I can't see us winning a single game in 2025, but man, this is but the thing is, if we go 8 and 9 and we miss the playoffs by a game, they're gonna get another year. They're gonna get another year, I think. And what's weird is if you don't take the quarterback in this draft, I don't think if they don't get if they don't get Shedeur Sanders, and they miss on a couple of the other guys that are projected to eventually be a starter, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I know people have really lost their minds about Shane not drafting a quarterback to compete with Daniel Jones during his 6 years. After 2022, it feels weird in the 2023 draft to be let's take a shot on Bryce, Like, what? What? So the people that are saying like, oh, Shane didn't draft a quarterback in 2023, it's like, okay. 2024, okay. But we all know what happened in 2024. But even that being said, there were plenty of other options that ended up panning out. Bo Nix is one example. But would Bo Nix have played as well in New York as he did with Denver? No, I don't think so. But this is where I think, we talk about the difference between the Eagles and the Giants, and it's just the Eagles are light years ahead of us in every possible facet. But it starts with the GM. Howie Roseman, and I've been pounding this friggin' table saying this for years and years and years, ever since the Giants drafted Saquon Barkley, second overall in the 2018 draft. Everyone's like, you never take a running back that high. And I said to them, well, he's not a running back. Howie Roseman viewed Barkley like a positionless offensive weapon, which is exactly how you need to look at him. It's exactly how we used him his rookie year when he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. He had something like 90 some odd catches. And I know that he's not the best catching the ball, but it's just about getting the ball in his hands. You have a better chance of success and getting more yards with the ball in his hands. And that's what Philly did. I mean, you saw it in the friggin' opener. Throwing the ball to him on a wheel route. Like they figured out how to get the ball in his hands. And it wasn't just handing the ball off. It was lining him out wide. It's screen game. It's, getting him on wheel routes. It's getting him locked up one-on-one with a linebacker or safety or anyone. He's going to beat them 10 times out of 10. And the Giants didn't view him as that. We're not going to pay a $12 million running back, a $40 million quarterback to hand off to a $12 million running back. And it's like, well, then you guys have completely missed. And it's shocking, too, considering, like, you guys, he's in the building. You know his history. You know what he did at Penn State. You've seen what he's done, and yet you have not used him to his full potential at all. So for Barkley, according to this article, it was eye-opening that other organizations valued him greater than the one which knew him best, which, yeah, I have to agree. That is very jarring to know that you have all these other organizations see what Barkley is producing with the Giants, but that's a commentary on how low, how poorly other organizations think of the Giants. We don't have the respect of the league. And if it's ever a matter of, are we going to take the player's word for it or the organization's word for it? We're going to take the player's word for it because the organization has proven that they can't get out of their own way. Here's a quote from Barkley. Me and my family literally had a sheet. We did pros and cons. The only con about Philly was I might get some slack because I played in New York. And I guess he was pretty damn close to signing with the Bears. Is he putting up 2,000 yards with the Bears? And no, I would assume not. Their offensive line was pretty bad. But you look at like what the moves Chicago has made this offseason. They have made trades, I think, for Joe Thuney and one other, I think maybe a lineman from the Rams, Jackson. They've upgraded their offensive line. I'm assuming they're going to try and, continue to do that in the draft. So they've upgraded significantly. But like if Barkley's on the 2024 Bears, like maybe he does crack the 1,000-yard barrier. But I think he's running into a lot of the same issues he would with the Giants. He probably, if he stayed with the Giants in 2024, I don't think he's, I think he does slightly better with the Bears than he does with the Giants. Giants generated the NFL's fewest amount of 20-yard plays, while Barkley set an NFL record for 60-yard runs. So, yeah, all-time bonehead move. And, we're paying for it. And we're going to probably continue to pay for it. I mean, who knows? You could have Barkley fall off the face of a cliff this season, but I don't know. I don't see it. That the offensive line just keeps regenerating. It's like they lose an arm and then they just grow it back. They lose a guard and they grow it back. They lose a tackle, they grow it back. It's just like they have done. The offensive line coach obviously is top of the line, but also their drafting process. We have a center, but we're going to draft a center. I mean, we have Jason Kelce, but we're going to draft a center. It's like just because you have someone doesn't mean you don't double down. And that will come into play once we go over who the Giants will draft this season. The annual NFLPA report card came out, and the Giants' grades were not great. Treatment of families, they got a C grade, which is interesting, for an organization that kind of prides on itself on having that and trying to nurture that family type environment. To know that they're treating families poorly is like kind of an eye opener. Food and dining area is a B. Nutritionist is a C plus, which is just brutal. Like, come on. Let's mix in some salads or something. The locker room is a C minus, which is also astounding. Training room is B minus, training staff B, weight room B minus, strength coach is A minus, and team travels B. This is where it gets interesting. We have talked a lot about what does the locker room think of Brian Daboll. We have kind of conflicting reports. You have some players that say they love him. Some players that previously were thought to maybe not have a great relationship with him speak highly of him. And then you have, the constant reports from the beat reporters in the media that are, there at the facility that are constantly covering the team, saying that, he's losing the locker room. He's going to lose the locker room. It looks like he's lost the locker room. Daboll got a B plus. So it's hard to really put your finger on like what the fuck is going on with the Giants. It's like, well, they like their coach, but why aren't they winning? What is it? Just injuries? Is it really that simple? It's just injuries, I guess. Then why the hell is the strength coach getting an A minus? Why is the training staff getting a B? Why is the training room getting a B minus? Very interesting. So yeah, I thought that was, I think the players, if they had to decide between Shane and Daboll, they'll side with Daboll. I don't know. So we'll see how those grades look after the 2025 season. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I can't see it getting worse, but from someone who's hit multiple rock bottoms, it is possible. Eli Manning was snubbed as a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's an absolute joke. I think every Giants fan can agree with that. The arguments against him are pretty awful. And there's plenty of arguments for him. Allow me to relay them. This is from @This Is Not Zane on X. Hall of Fame quarterbacks with 0 All-Pros. 0 All-Pro selections. So, obviously, Eli did not get an All-Pro during his lengthy career. Other Hall of Fame quarterbacks have. Other quarterbacks have made the Hall of Fame without any All-Pro selections. John Elway, Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman, Warren Moon. Elway went to more Super Bowls, so I'll give you that. I think he was 2 and 3, 2 and 4 in Super Bowls. Roger Staubach obviously won a bunch of Super Bowls, more than Eli. Aikman won more Super Bowl than Eli. Warren Moon didn't win any Super Bowls. So, but he also, had to play. He played in the CFL for a while. So it's like if he had played his entire career in the NFL, who knows what would have happened. Hall of Fame quarterbacks with 4 Pro Bowls or less. So similar to what we're looking at with Eli. Kenny Stabler, the Snake, Bart Starr, Kurt Warner, and Terry Bradshaw. Again, Bradshaw's won 4 Super Bowls. I think Starr won 2. Kurt Warner won 1. No, he didn't even win 1. Did he? Yes, he did. Oh my God. Yes, he won 1, lost 1. I think. Hall of Fame quarterbacks with less touchdowns. There were 18 Hall of Fame quarterbacks with less touchdowns than Eli Manning. Quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks with more interceptions. Brett Favre, Fran Tarkenton, Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino, and Peyton Manning. Hall of Fame quarterbacks with more yards. Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and Dan Marino. So Eli's won more Super Bowls than 17 NFL teams. He beat an undefeated Patriots team led by the best quarterback and coach duo ever. He did it again a few years later with no Hall of Famers in his supporting casts, which is absolutely true. I would like to think that someone like a Chris Snee, maybe not. Yeah, I guess you don't really have. I think Chris Snee would be the closest thing to a Hall of Famer on that offense. He was top 10 in every notable passing stat, never missed a game. So it's just like, but it's surprising because it's surprising, but at the same time, it's like so Eli to just get disrespected yet again. I mean, he's gonna make the Hall of Fame. It's just like to not get first ballot. It's people make such a big deal about it, but I don't know that that doesn't really come up in conversation a lot once you're amongst Hall of Famers. It's like, were you first ballot or not first ballot? Oh, but we're both in the same place. Okay, so what's going on here? Why are we in such a tizzy? But he's gonna make there's no way he's not making the Hall of Fame. Another guy that is destined for the Hall of Fame that some people thought would be a New York Giant. Matthew Stafford. The failed trade for Matthew Stafford. The Matthew Stafford saga. In late January, there were reports that the Giants could be a potential trade suitor for Matthew Stafford if he's unavailable to finalize a new deal with the Rams. And then that was in late January, and then in early March, the Giants made both an agreeable trade offer and contract offer for Matthew Stafford, but he ultimately decided to stay with the Rams for significantly less money. Stafford probably prioritized winning and not having to uproot his life and family. So, that's how, and it's not just Stafford, with Stafford back at the Rams, the two alternatives, the top alternatives that we were looking at were Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. The Aaron Rodgers situation is very weird, which is par for the course for Aaron Rodgers, because it's like Aaron Rodgers reached out to the Giants, or unless that was the report, was that he reached out to them first. So it's interesting that he reached out to them, but that doesn't mean that the Giants are his number one pick. Like, from what I've heard and seen, it's like he wanted, I guess LA was the number one pick if they couldn't come to terms with Stafford. Once that fell through, it was Minnesota, I think, was his second pick. Minnesota said no, and then now he's kind of flirting with the Steelers. So there was video of him throwing with DK Metcalf, new Steelers receiver. So that kind of prompted rumors that he's going to be signing with them. Which seems like a pretty decent match. He's basically guaranteed a playoff berth. And it's just a matter of like, can he finally get off the schneid with his playoff slump? He's got hell of a defense, and that offense, despite losing Najee Harris, you do get George Pickens and DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth. And Jaylen Warren, I guess they're still going to be on the hunt for a running back in the draft, but you got a pretty decent situation there. You're probably going to the playoffs. You go to the Giants, it's like you're probably not going to the playoffs, and you're probably having a season that is akin to what you had with the Jets in 2024. So I can understand why Rodgers wouldn't want to come to the Giants. It's a lot of just bad juju in the Meadowlands for Rodgers. So I wouldn't have completely hated it if we signed him. I think if you were to give me, if there's the choice between Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, I think I'm more apt to roll the dice with Russell Wilson. I know that's kind of weird because Rodgers has pretty much outperformed Wilson in every possible metric But the age thing is just hard to get past because I don't think he is Tom Brady at that age. Tom Brady was throwing for like 5,000 yards at 41 or something like that. So, he's still, I tried not to watch Jets games, but the limited amount I did watch, he has. You see the highlight reel every time they talk about him in a lot of the talk shows, and he throws a pretty ball, man. Better ball than we've seen in a long time. But there's stuff that comes along with him. Like I watched Aaron Rodgers' Enigma. That I finally watched that on docuseries on Netflix, and it was only because the Giants. It's like he reached out to the Giants, and it's like, okay, I guess the Giants are an actual real destination landing spot for him. So I was like, let's go. So I knocked back some ayahuasca and I turned it on, and it was completely engrossing. He is incredibly interesting. I can understand and see why people would get very sick and tired and frustrated of dealing with him on some stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's just, stating the obvious. He's very polarizing, but there are a lot of things that he said and did in that docuseries that make me think, wow, this guy is like, I don't want to say cool, but like his approach is so different and unique. And it's almost like refreshing to see someone like that can be so thoughtful. But then you have to deal with like, oh, well, where's Aaron? What is Aaron doing? He's in a darkness retreat. It's just like I feel like I don't mind that he goes on a darkness retreat. I don't mind that he goes out into the wilderness and tries to reconnect with nature, and he takes ayahuasca and he tries to kill his ego. And it's like, I really don't care about that stuff. But it is like when everyone has to, and this is where people debate and argue. When everyone has to wait on his timeline, it comes across as disrespectful. It's like teams have to make decisions. Teams have to move forward. And it's like for them to wait on you for with no date intact, kind of crossing fingers and hoping that you'll sign with them. Meanwhile, like other guys are getting signed and like the draft's coming up. It just, it can be tough. So I think the Giants made the right move, and they were like, listen, we cannot wait. We cannot wait for you to make a decision. We've already, you saw like even in free agency. I mean, free agency opened March 12th or something like that. And, we didn't sign Winston till like March 20 something. And Jameis Winston was 2 weeks later. And then Russell Wilson was like 3 weeks later. So, I mean, we didn't rush into anything per se, but I don't think, unless I missed it, I don't think Aaron Rodgers has signed with anyone. So still holding up for the Vikings, I guess. But the Vikings like moved off of Sam Darnold because they believed or supposedly believe in JJ McCarthy. On the Vikings, though, it's like, what damage will you do if you let JJ sit for a year? Can you sign Rodgers for a year contract and let JJ fully recover from his injury? Because, looking at what happened with Daniel Jones when he first tore his ACL in November 2023, early November 2023, people were like, well, he's not going to make the beginning of the season. It's going to be a year. He's going to be back like by the trade deadline. And then he's starting week 1, but he's not the same. So you can see it with Saquon too, after he tore his ACL in the beginning of 2020, 2021. It took him a few weeks to get the rust off. And then even then he would get re-hurt. And it's just like, oh, no. Most guys do not want to play for the Giants. So that's why I was interested to see that we had such a great free agency period. Because you see guys like Stafford and Rodgers, veterans that are passing on the Giants and be like, no, thanks. We don't want anything to do with that. And then to have the kind of haul we had in free agency was pretty impressive. So let's talk about free agency. Key free agent signings on defense. We got edge Chauncey Golston, former Dallas Cowboy, 3 years, $18 million. I think that's a good signing. That's a good signing. If we learned anything, it's that, Brian Burns was banged up all last season. Kayvon Thibodeau missed some games due to injury. Thibodeau has been somewhat inconsistent. Some would say ineffective. Brian Burns, despite having injuries, played fairly well. I think he was a Pro Bowl alternate. But you can never have enough defensive linemen, quality defensive linemen. And we saw that last season. It's like once you lose Dexter Lawrence, that unit goes to shit. So glad to have Golston on board, especially like snagging him from the Cowboys, who are feels like they're in a tailspin. It's like they underperformed last season. Dak gets hurt. And then you have, DeMarcus Lawrence talking shit about Dallas and what's going on in the locker room. Micah Parsons takes a shot at him. So feels like there's a lot of turmoil there, and it'd be interesting to see how they all respond to it. So, but glad to have Golston on board. Defensive lineman Jeremiah Ledbetter, 1 year, $1.8 million deal with incentives, and then defensive lineman Roy Robertson Harris, 2 year, $9 million contract. Yeah, I mean, Nacho's not the answer, and luckily, it's great that we brought in these free agency additions for depth, but ultimately, I think that you are probably gonna get a starter in the draft. That's where my head's at. It's like that's who I have kind of slotted in next to Dexter Lawrence is like whoever we draft, because I can't see us. It's one of the. I mean, like I've done way too much research for this episode, and I saw like this draft class is just stacked with defensive linemen, just like out the ass. So many defensive linemen. Was it 13 or 18 of the top prospects are just like D tackles? It's like, whoa, okay. So I think, you come out of this draft without drafting a D tackle, that's grounds for dismissal, dude. Here are your papers. Make sure you wait a week. There's a waiting period for when you collect from unemployment. And then Chris Board, linebacker, 2 year deal worth up to $6 million. I don't hate that at all. Linebacker or linebacking unit. Once Okereke goes down, Masao played okay, but we had Mike McFadden was hurt at one point. We had Ty Summers playing linebacker, so you definitely need some depth there. And I think Chris Board is more of like a special teams player, so I don't see him getting a ton of snaps in relief. But the big one, the one that, one of the two that I'm most excited about, cornerback Paulson Adebo signed a 3 year, $54 million contract that includes $36 million fully guaranteed. He's coming off a season in which he allowed just a 71.9 passer rating and had 3 picks. The year before, he allowed a 62.7 passer rating, intercepted 4 passes on 100 targets. He did break his femur and required surgery. He does get penalized a lot. 9 flags thrown against him in those 7 games, 6 of them being for DPI, other 3 for defensive holding. So, he's a little grabby, but better to be hands-on, and physical and making contact and hand fighting than, there's 2 yards of separation. 6'1", 192. He's 25 years old, played at Stanford. So him and Okereke might have some fun war stories. He was first interceptions in the Pac-12 in 2019, third interceptions in the Pac-12 2018. He was also top 5 in passes defended in 2018 and 2019, the Pac-12, and he was second in the in the nation in 2018 with 20 passes defended. For his career, he ended up 6th in the conference with 30 passes defended. So, Saints drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2021 NFL draft. Ironically, that Saints pick, the 3rd round, 76 overall, was traded by the Giants along with the 5th round pick that year to the Broncos for their 3rd round pick. So we traded up 5 slots to select Aaron Robinson. It's like, that's just all free agency is. Free agency is like, we're going to fix the mistake that we made on draft night. Like, we should have drafted Paulson Adebo at 76, and instead we went with Aaron Robinson, who I don't even know if he's on the team anymore. No, he's not on the team. That pick, the 76 overall in the 3rd round, was then traded by the Broncos to the Saints for a 3rd round pick, or two 3rd round picks. Adebo was the player of the week, NFC Defensive Player of the Week in 2023, Week 9. His 4 interceptions were 7th most in 2023. His 18 passes defended was 3rd most in 2023. So he had a 63.3 grade from PFF in 2024. Most of his numbers, like tackles, targets, receptions allowed, he wasn't amongst the tops there. But 2023, he had a pretty outstanding year, 78.6 PFF grade. He was tied for 13th in tackles, tied for 5th in interceptions, 16th in targets, and tied for 26th in receptions allowed. 2022 was a bit of a down year for him. 0 interceptions and 49.1 PFF grade. In 2021, his rookie season, 60.3 PFF grade. So very excited about that. How does that impact the draft? Well, you don't need a CB1 now. Paulson Adebo is your CB1, and Deonte Banks can finally be your CB2, and da-da-da. And this means that we don't need to select Travis Hunter, and I'm here to tell you, no. I am still on the Travis Hunter train. Full stop. The other free agent signing that I was pretty psyched about, Jevon Holland, 3 years, $45.3 million, includes $30.3 million in guarantees, which is it's funny because basically, and this is where we talk about free agency learning from the draft, and specifically Joe Schoen's free agency, trying to correct or learn from the mistakes he made in the previous offseason. So he lets Xavier McKinney walk because he undervalues him, thinks that he could have offered maybe $7 million and then per year, and then he gets some like 14 or whatever million from Green Bay, and he's a first team All-Pro with the Packers. So that's a knock against Schoen yet again, and so he's trying to make up for that by signing Jevon Holland to basically what Xavier McKinney's contract would have been. So is Jevon Holland as good as Xavier McKinney? I don't think so, but we'll see. Maybe this will unlock something within him. But good to have him, pairing him with Tyler Nubin. I love that. You have kind of the younger draft pick paired with the older free agent addition. You have Deonte Banks, young draft pick, paired with the veteran free agent at the corner position with Adebo. So really like what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Special teams, Jamie Gillen was re-signed on a 3-year contract with up to $10.2 million. I don't hate it. I think he struggled one season, but then I think he's come around. I think last season he played well. He kind of flew under the radar in terms of he had some really great games. He put a lot of balls inside the 10, inside the 20. And so I'm completely fine with the Scottish Hammer coming back. Casey Kreider, long snapper, resigned to a free agent deal. And then the big one, Amir Smith-Marset resigned with the Giants, which is huge. That means it's probably the end for Gunnar Olszewski. But Amir is younger, I believe he's faster. We've seen his potential on kickoffs, and hopefully we can get the punt return game in order. So completely on board with that. Now we get to the offense. And might as well just kick it off right off the bat with the quarterbacks. So first it was Jameis Winston, 2-year deal, $8 million, which I still am in disbelief about that figure. I still don't understand how that makes sense, considering his market value on Spot Track was higher than that. And once it's funny because when we signed him, everyone was like, all right, let's go. It's going to be an interesting year. Like, get ready for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, but a lot of interceptions. It's just going to be an absolute roller coaster. We're going to get the full Jameis Winston experience. And people were like, okay, we're going to roll with Winston as the starter and he'll compete with whoever we draft. That was, and the all signs were pointing to it. I mean, you talk about Winston was down in New Orleans as like a correspondent for who, I don't know. He's got a microphone in his hand, which is a recipe for gold. And he, during that week, Media Row, Super Bowl week, says that he absolutely wants to sign with the Giants this offseason. Quote, I have a ton of respect for head coach Brian Daboll. I think we have a young, roster ready to win. I know they're hungry over there. So he wants to play for the Giants. He asked Saquon Barkley, during Super Bowl week, who should I play for? And Saquon said he suggested he play for the Giants. So, hey, it's rare that we get people that want to play here. So, considering everything that's gone down, so it's good to have someone who wants to be in the building, who, is going to bring a new kind of personality, attitude, demeanor, approach to life and football. That kind of mentality, that mindset of like he's intense, he's passionate, he's dedicated, and that's something that we haven't seen out of the quarterback position for a long time. You're talking probably going back to Phil Simms. It's like we just don't have fiery dudes. Eli never really got like fiery, and then so everyone's like, all right, let's roll with Winston. It's going to, at least this year, won't be boring. And then a week later, something like that, we signed Russell Wilson to a 1-year, $10.5 million deal that can be worth up to $21 million, just about, I guess, with incentives. So I think I have the incentives here somewhere. Pull it up real quick. So funny when I go to Spot Track and I search for Russell Wilson, and there's 2 Russell Wilsons that show up, one for the Giants and one for the Yankees. Like, we still have his contract information from the Yankees. $8 million signing bonus, 10.5 guaranteed. And then, so his base salary is $2 million. Signing bonus, $8 million. It's a workout bonus and likely incentives. So where is the 20? Okay, here are the playing time incentives. Oh, so he does have, okay. Regular season win incentive. Team wins with 50% of snaps, $176,000. Playing time incentives, 65% of snaps, $500,000, 75% $1 million, 85% $1.5 million. 96 plus passer rating, 500,000, 64% plus completion rate, 500K, 20 touchdowns plus 88 passer rating, 500,000, 30 touchdowns and 88 passer rating, 250,000, 2,500 passing yards and 88 passer rating, 500,000, 3,500 passing yards and 88 passer rating, 250,000. He also has playoff incentives. All right. I still don't, I'm trying to do the math in my head, but I could have sworn that it was worth up to 20 something million dollars. Nah. Maybe if we cut him, if that's the deal. If we cut him, then we'd have to owe him $20 million or something like that. Is that what it is? No. It's, I don't know. So, I mean, listen, I would have, it's, I don't know. I would have liked to have signed him last season and see him compete with Daniel Jones and and see how that would have gone. I would have liked that, but we get him this year. I think, everyone that has complained about the Giants not being able to throw the ball deep, or at least, try to throw the ball deep past 10 yards, your worries are over. I'm very excited to see how he works with not just Malik Neighbors, but Darius Slayton. And, people are saying that there might be a renaissance for Jalen Hyatt, since we now have a quarterback that's willing to take deep shots more often. So, and we saw what happened, with Tyrod Taylor when he took some shots deep. I mean, Darius Slayton was a huge benefactor of playing with Tyrod Taylor. So I sent this out. I posted it. We have the most interesting quarterback room in NFL history. Russell Wilson, who is essentially a robot, Jameis Winston, who's the exact opposite of a robot, and Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets. I remember my buddy sent me this video from social media where it's just like a cut together edit video of that skin crawling, cringe inducing Subway commercial with Russell Wilson, where it's like he's eating the sub and making weird comments. Intercut with Jameis Winston's interview. I think it was from Sunday Conversation with Caleb Presley, where he's just saying wild shit to Tommy DeVito, just saying not being able to speak correctly. And there was one part where Jameis is doing some kind of exercise in a pool with his arms, and he's making waves, and then you cut to some kind of natural disaster movie where a tsunami takes over and floods an island or a village. It's just it's not going to be boring, and that's maybe that's what the team needs. They're just tired of vanilla shit. Just let's spice it up a little bit. Let's mix it up. See where it takes us. So I'm down. Giants Nation, let's ride. The quarterback play. And I know this is a super hot take. The quarterback play will be better. There's some people saying, there's some DJ defenders out there that are saying that either Wilson or Winston are going to play worse than Daniel Jones. And I mean, well, I guess we'll see. DJ doesn't re-sign with the Vikings, which I thought was interesting. And signs a 1-year, $14 million contract with the Colts, who have Anthony Richardson, 2023 draft pick. So, obviously competition there for AR, and we'll see who comes out on top. But, God, if Daniel Jones goes 9-8 with the fucking Colts and sneaks into the playoffs as a wild card seed, it's gonna, oh boy. And we go 7-10 or 8-9 with Russell Wilson and just miss the playoffs, the phone lines are lighting up. That'll be interesting, dude. We brought back Greg Van Roten, GVR, who I think that's a smart decision. 1 year, $4 million. He can be your starting right guard if all else fails. Hopefully that's, he's just a nice depth piece. Or if JMS continues to struggle, you just move GVR to center and slot someone else in a right guard. But I'm all for that move. I think he played well. I think he might have played better than Runyon. So love that signing. Stone Forsythe is interesting. Former Seattle Seahawks signed with the Giants. I've been listening. I have been listening to watching Talking Giants, a nice Giants podcast with Bobby Skinner, Justin Pennick. And Bobby Skinner was saying it was interesting that Giants signed Stone Forsythe for less than they did for James Hudson, former Cleveland Brown, who signed a 2-year, $12 million deal with a max value of 116 max value of $16 million. So you got your veteran tackles coming in. Does, Bobby Skinner was saying that Forsyth in some regards, in some respects, is a better player than Hudson. So it's interesting to see that Hudson got the bigger contract. They brought back Aaron Stinney, who we talked about before. It should be Ben Bredesen. Ben Bredesen would probably be our starting guard at this point. We wouldn't have to look to the draft, but is Forsyth and Hudson better than what we had last year in terms of depth at tackle? Yes, I think there's a slight improvement. Stinney is kind of whatever. I think it's good to, keep most of the guys intact from that line. But they could, I still think that does not preclude them from drafting. I would prefer they draft. I don't think they have to, I don't think it's a mandatory thing, but like, damn, man, I look at guard might be tough. There are not a ton of top guards in this draft. I think there's like half a dozen that could probably come in and start year one, if not year one, year two. There are way more tackles available in this draft. And, we'll get to it, but like given Andrew Thomas's injury history, given that Jermaine Illuminor is going to be a free agent after this season or next season, and we're in an interesting game with Jermaine Illuminor where it's like, played really well last season, gave you some stability at right tackle, but they are not convinced enough to give him an extension. So if he comes out and plays like doo-doo this year, okay, you can just move on. But if he comes out and plays well, that drives up his price even more than it already is. We kind of have him on a bargain last season, and then you lose him in free agency. And so, so that I still think, even though they do sign Hudson, I can still see us, and I hope that we draft a promising young tackle, because there's plenty of options. It's more than a dozen options that are available, which we'll get to. They brought back Chris Manhertz. I mean, hell, the guy scored the first touchdown for the Giants at home or something like that in 2024. So primarily a run blocker, but can catch the ball and could be a red zone target. A good pairing with Theo Johnson. Now that I guess that, does this mean the end of Daniel Bellinger? He did get a performance escalator. So his contract, he's now earning something like $3 million, but his snaps, dropped significantly last season and the season before with Darren Waller coming in. So is he a candidate to get cut? I liked Belly in 2022. Then he gets hurt, gets poked in the eye, and he hasn't been the same. So I would have liked to have him back, but given that what our cap situation is, which we'll get to, it's not great. So we do have to make some moves in order to make room for the draft picks and what they are going to sign for. So one of the signings that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, and I don't know that it deserves a lot of chatter. Little Jordan Humphrey. Back when I was dating my girlfriend, she's a Broncos fan. So we watched a lot of Broncos games together, and little Jordan Humphrey would just kind of pop up here and there, typically scoring touchdowns. Big bodied guy. I think that could be a sneaky good addition, especially in the red zone. So I think most Giants fans have been craving a big body wide receiver for a while now. And little Jordan Humphrey could be that guy. Let me just to make sure, see what he's got going on in terms of 6'4", 225. Hell yeah, 26 years old. Initially undrafted free agent. Yeah, I guess the undrafted free agent who signed with the Saints. Didn't see a lot of time there, but then had kind of a breakout season last season. So I watched him during the 2023 season, and only had 13 catches for 162 yards, but 3 touchdowns. It's more than a lot of the Giants receivers. So, and then last season he kind of had his best. He had his best season in his 6-year career. 31 grabs, 293 yards, 12 first downs. So he's good for a big catch or two. So I'm curious to see how he makes it into the fold, but that's someone I would keep an eye on. And then Zach Pascal signed a 1-year deal, former Indianapolis Colt. We all know how those turn out. Given what happened with what's his face. I already forgot his name. So sad. But yeah, he's played 7 seasons. Primarily, got a lot of playing time from 2019 through 2021 with the Colts, then went to the Eagles for a year. Did not see a lot of time or action with the Cardinals last season. So, not sure what to make of that. Not really sure what to make of that signing, and then the big one, Darius Slayton coming back. I'm a little surprised, and I think a lot of people that have been following the Giants closely have been surprised because it just feels like a toxic relationship. It's just like, Darius, my man, they're not treating you right. They are not treating you right. I mean, this is a guy who went from almost being cut when Daboll first arrived on the scene in 2022. They asked him to take a pay cut. He does. He has to fight tooth and nail to get a contract extension, and they finally come around on that. It's like the guy has been, and yeah, it's a default. He's been our top receiver since he's been drafted in 2019. So, with the exception of last season, obviously, but like the guy still has the ability to get separation, turn on the burners, take a short pass for a long gain. And, obviously it's the drops issue, but the kicker here is, and I can't imagine being this regime is volatile. I'll say that. The fact that they put DJ through the ringer and test him when Daboll arrives, and then what they put him through, and then what they put Darius Slayton through, and for Slayton to say, yes, I want to stay here and continue with these shenanigans, it's like, more power to you. I can't quit you. I get it, Darius Slayton, but here's the kicker. 3-year deal worth $36 million. $12 million a year, which is pretty much the equivalent of what Saquon Barkley got from the Eagles. So I'm glad he's back. I really hope he has a standout year. I really hope that this is a year where we're seriously talking and considering him being in a Pro Bowl. I think that would be pretty awesome, considering the amount of attention that Malik Neighbors should be getting. And since we should be getting better quarterback play, Russell Wilson, part of the success that Darius Slayton had his rookie season and early on were deep shots. DJ taking deep shots. We saw it, against the Lions in 2019. We saw it against the Steelers in 2020. Against the, obviously he had that huge drop in 2021 against Washington. But guy gets open, guy gets separation, just get him the ball in space where he is already at top speed or can get the top speed pretty quickly based on the route. I'm glad he's back. It's got to be one of the weirder situations I've ever come across with a player and a team. I don't think a player and a team have gone through the kind of like ups and downs that Slayton has gone through with this Giants regime. It's wild that Daboll would come in and say, nope, we're going to cut you. It's like, why? I'm been the top receiver here for the past 3 years. And I'm not even the wide receiver one. I haven't been called the wide receiver one, and yet I'm leading the team in receiving yards every year. So I'm happy he came back. I think most people thought he would want to get the hell out of Dodge, considering how he's been treated. But glad to have him back. That contract is kind of ridiculous. But yet again, I mean, that's just what the market will bear, considering what some of these other receivers have received that are not Pro Bowl caliber. You know, so we'll see how Russell Wilson is able to connect with him. Yeah, and we ended up losing out on Sam Darnold. He ends up going to the Seahawks, signing a 3-year deal worth more than $100 million, including a $32 million signing bonus, $52.5 million guaranteed, average annual salary of $33.5, so a little too rich for our blood. And then Geno Smith, former Seahawks quarterback, was traded from Seattle to the Las Vegas Raiders, to reunite with Pete Carroll. He then signed an extension, a 2-year extension worth $75 million, including $66.5 million guaranteed. So the Raiders are kind of interesting to watch. New coach, proven coach, who now gets to have a quarterback that he's worked with and has clicked with and has succeeded with. Who else did the Raiders sign? They signed some other people that are pretty good, pretty decent. And then, so quarterback carousel. And then, Aaron Rodgers. We'll see where he probably ends up with the Steelers. So that'll be interesting too. I mean, going to a super tough division. But to be able to work with Mike Tomlin, I think there's probably got to be a good level of respect, mutual respect there. Two old heads putting together a lot of playoff experience at two of the top spots in the organization. So Azeez Ojulari ended up signing with the freaking Eagles. Kind of, I'm a little surprised. 1 year, $3 million. I think his market value is like $5 million, something like that. So, is he going to be a starter? No, but he's going to be like a passing down, pass rush specialist, possibly. I definitely see him getting a sack or two against us. That's just how it's gonna play out. Jason Pinnock, with Jevon Holland now on board, he signs with the Niners. Niners are pretty much in a rebuild mode, it seems like. And then Adoree Jackson, still kicking, signed a 1-year deal, $1.755 million with the Eagles, dude. Tim Boyle, who was at one point our best quarterback, believe it or not, after DJ was released. 1 year, $1.255 million with the Titans. And then Patrick Johnson, who I don't remember seeing him get a lot of time. He signs with the Eagles too. Why not? Eagles just sign everyone. Why not? So the free agents, there's still some free agents left that played with the Giants in 2024. Among them, we talked about Gunnar Olszewski. He's probably not coming back, if I had to guess, although I like the duo of Gunnar and Amir, both in kickoffs. And fuck it, dude. 2 punt returners? Let's get nuts. Who are you going to kick it to? Huh? Drew Lock, still a free agent. And Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons has 5 years of experience. He's about to turn 27. One of the highest graded prospects in college. I mean, I was going back and forth about whether or not we should pick Andrew Thomas or Isaiah Simmons into the 2020 draft, along with Devontae Smith. And man, what the guy was supposed to be like Weapon X last season. we had like Shane Bowen talking. And it must have been, I guess it was just a smokescreen. He was talking about how like he's going to be fully unleashed and unlocked in his system. And it's like, nope. So yeah, I don't think you're going to bring back a lot of those guys. Maybe you bring back Simmons for a clubhouse fit, although $5 million for a guy that's playing like less than 20% of defensive snaps. I guess he's more of a special teams guy. Did get you the blocked kick that's won the game in Seattle, but is that worth $5 million? I don't know. I don't think so. So we have the least amount of cap space left. We have $1.8 million roughly in cap space remaining. Dead last in the league. we need about $15 million to $16 million just for our draft picks. So that means we're going to have to make some moves. Both Sport Track and Pro Football Network have really great tools, I guess you could say, where you can manage the roster, off-season manage your roster. You can release, cut, trade, all that great stuff. So after reviewing a lot of like the financials and trying to not add a ton of void years for a lot of players, Andrew Thomas is signed through 2030, 2029, something like that. And if we convert his minimum base salary for this year to a bonus, doesn't add any void years, and we can free up a lot of money there. So my guess is that would be the move. You could release Graham Gano. That creates some more money. You could release Nacho. Doesn't create as much money. I know Belly is a candidate to be cut. Cordell Flott is also a candidate, but he's also not. Dude's only 24. He took a step up last season. Still a little undersized, but I like him, one-on-one with the guys that can burn. So I would not release Cordell Flott. He seems, I think the outlook is looking up for Flott. But for Belly, I don't know, man. It's not looking good. So he could be a cut candidate. But if you release Graham Gano, which they absolutely 1,000% need to do at this point, and convert Thomas's contract, you're looking at creating about $16 million. So I think that looks like the strategy there. In terms of other cut candidates, Nacho is making $5 million. He's 32 years old. If we cut him, we take on 1.4 in dead cap, but you save, 3 something. So that's a nice little chunk of change. I don't think you're going to cut Micah McFadden. Even, I think he's a pretty solid player who, even if you don't think he is, if you look strictly at PFF grades, the guy is like pretty good, but I think he's more of a high-end backup than he is a starter full-time. I could be wrong, and I hope he does prove me wrong. Release Wan'Dale Robinson. No, I don't think you can release him. Although you don't you don't save a ton releasing him. Azudu is another release candidate. He's not making a ton of money, $1.7 million. It would be less than $300,000 in dead cap. So you're not taking much, saving a lot there. Greg Dulcich, who they got from the Broncos or the Seahawks last season. It's only 25. I don't think he would incur any dead cap if he was released. He's making like $1.4 million. Dane Belton could be on the chopping block. Now you have Jevon Holland and Tyler Nubin back there. Do you need Dane Belton, or does Dane Belton take on a new kind of role? He wouldn't have a ton of dead cap. And then, so those are like the top candidates I think you would need to think about releasing in order to free up some more space if, for whatever reason, Andrew Thomas the team wouldn't do the easy thing and convert most of Thomas's contract to a bonus. So that brings us to the NFL draft. Round 1, day 1, April 24th at 8 p.m. I believe it's a Thursday. And then rounds 2 and 3 on April 25th, Friday. And then 4 through 7 on Saturday, this 26th, starting at noon. Giants have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 draft picks. We got a compensatory pick in the 3rd round. I believe that's for Xavier McKinney. And then we got a 5th round pick from the Seahawks. We do not have a 6th round pick. We have 2 7s and 2 3s. We got one of the 7s from the Bills. I believe that was from the Boogie Basham trade. Possibly, maybe not. So our biggest key positions of need, we got 5 of them. Take a wild guess what the first one is. Quarterback. I'm here to tell you, I understand it's a need. Is it a pressing need this season? I don't think so. I really don't. There are people saying you can't afford to pass on Shedeur Sanders at 3. You can't. And everyone's mocking the Giants to pick Sanders at 3. And I'm thinking, I'm okay with passing on him. I think I'm okay with it because you have two other players that are legitimately, like, basically generational talents. Not quite generational talents, but like not far off. And so I think to pass on either one of those two players for a guy that could be like a slightly above average starter, I just I would not be upset if we pass on Shedeur Sanders at 3. O-line is a big one. You know, I know we just rattled off all the free agency additions that we made at tackle with Forsyth and Hudson, and at guard, bringing back Stinney, and GVR. But it's very clear that those are bridges. You know, we talk about bridge quarterbacks. These are bridge linemen. You know, the veteran guys that can take a rookie guard and a rookie tackle under the wing, show them the ropes, let them learn and develop so that year 2 and at most year 3, they're then plugged in as the starter. Preferably you get a guard in this draft that you can plug in as a starter year 1 right away. But then, you know, that means you have to sacrifice taking one of these other positions of need. So cornerback, still a position of need. I know that sounds crazy because you now have Drew Phillips as your starter in the slot. Cordell Flott's taking a step up. You have Dante Banks, CB2. You have Paulson Adebo, CB1. You have Jevon Holland, Tyler Nubin. Still have Dane Belton. So you have a good, your secondary has improved, at least on paper, a lot. So, but that doesn't mean that you should stop. I still think with, I had that video that I released about Joe Schoen and how he's kind of failed to address a lot of the premium positions. Cornerback is a premium position. He made the decision last season to let Xavier McKinney walk, who's a safety, I understand, but a leader in the clubhouse, widely respected, let him walk. You then have Jason Pinnock, who did an okay job with Tyler Nubin. And that level of the secondary suffered. You then thought that Deonte Banks could be your CB1. You didn't go out and get a CB1. You didn't even go out and get a CB2, really. And then Nick McLeod, you cut like halfway through the season. So I know you have Adebo in the mix now. You know, Phillips, when he was on the field and healthy, made some impact plays here and there, but I still think you got to get a corner. And then defensive line, to me, on defense is probably the area that is going to improve the most in the draft. So I know the secondary took a huge step up through free agency. I think there's one more piece you could add there at the top of the draft. Wink, wink, hint, hint. And if you don't get him at the top of the draft, then okay, maybe corners. If you come out of this draft without a corner, I'm not like that butthurt about it. You come out of this draft without a fucking defensive lineman, I'm going to lose my shit. Like this, I said it before, but my God, this class is stacked at defensive line and defensive tackle specifically. So as a reminder, there's two kind of, systems, approaches I'm taking here when I'm looking and evaluating at prospects. One is the prospects grades that you'll see on NFL.com. There's scouting combine, draft profile that they have on all the prospects. They assign prospect grades. I go over these every year, and every year I'm flabbergasted by how stupid a lot of these grades are and how they don't make any sense. But it's kind of how it's a barometer. It's how we're measuring to some degree what we can expect from these prospects. But a grade of 8 is the perfect prospect. 7.3 to 7.5 is perennial all-pro. 7 to 7.1 is Pro Bowl talent. 6.7 to 6.9 is year 1 starter. 6.5 to 6.6 is boomer bust potential, which is so wild. 6.4 to 6.49 will become starter within 2 years. 6.3 to 6.39 will eventually be a plus starter. And then I basically cut it off there as like, you want to make sure that every single draft pick, all 8 of your draft picks, if you do keep all 8 of your draft picks, should be about a 6 point, you're hoping for, at least for your positions of need, quarterback, O-line, maybe not quarterback, but O-line, D-line, O-line and D-line, at least with O tackle and defensive tackle, I think you should not settle for anything less than a 6.3 prospect grade. 6.2 to 6.9, 2.9 is eventually will be an average starter, which, I mean, we'll even take that at this point. We ain't picky, homie. 6.1 to 6.19 is a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. So that's kind of where I cut it off. I'm not looking at anyone underneath a 6.1 prospect grade. Like every pick should be a 6.1 or above in my HO. What's interesting is I don't know if they had this last year, but apparently the NFL has partnered with the AWS, the Amazon Web Services, to do this Combine IQ. And they have data going back to 2003, looking at, so there's the next gen. So we all know the next gen stats. They have the athleticism score, production score, and then draft score, right? I could give you a million guesses as to who has the number one ranked draft score, which I guess combines athleticism score, production score, all the different scores for the draft score. Who's ranked number one since 2003 as the number one draft score prospect? Million guesses, you'll never get it. RG3. I'm amazed by that. He had an athleticism score of 90, which is considered elite, ranked 15th since 2003. And his production score is 99, which is ranked first. He really balled out at Baylor. And so, yeah, he's a draft score of 97, the first among, there's something like, I think it goes into the 300s or 400s just about in terms of rankings. Second on the list since 2003, Jaden Daniels. So, yeah, there's a reason why Brian Daboll fell in love with the guy and wanted him big time and needed him and wanted him. But sadly enough, Washington had the pick. And if you're saying, well, where's Drake May? He is further down on the list. And that's because his athleticism score is considered average, 74. Because green is good, yellow is average, I think. So most of the guys that are in the top, of the guys that have been ranked by draft score in the top 30 have made the Pro Bowl, have started as a rookie and have made the Pro Bowl. The only ones who haven't are like some of the younger guys, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, Justin Fields. Tua has never made a Pro Bowl, which that doesn't sound right. That's crazy. And Zach Wilson. So Cam Ward has a draft score that is just below Zach Wilson and just above Baker Mayfield, who is the number one pick. Zach Wilson was the number 2 pick in the 2021 draft, which, I've been writing articles for Pro Football Network, making bank, snapping necks and cashing checks. And there was, I guess, there was a quote from, they had their annual team or league meetings in Palm Beach, Florida. Was it last week before? And Jets owner Woody Johnson was saying like, we loved Justin Fields coming out of college or something like that. It's like, well, you had the opportunity to pick him and you went with Zach Wilson, who is now a backup in Miami. So, you could have had Trevor Lawrence and you could have Justin Fields. Both have higher draft scores than Zach Wilson, but they wanted to soak with the Mormon. You know what I'm saying? So Cam Ward has a higher athletic score than Zach Wilson and Baker Mayfield, but lower production scores. So it's wild that I actually saw him play when he was with Washington State in 2022, in November 2022. I went and I remember watching and being like, what is this? Like, it was RPO out the ass, and it felt so slow. Like, I don't know. It just felt like every RPO took so long to develop. I was just like, it didn't feel, I don't know. Very weird experience. Also weird that Cam Ward, I posted about this on Facebook, but he was not like highly touted prospect at a high school and it's because he ran the wing T offense in high school where like you don't pass. Where like I think he was, one game was 3 of 11 for 78 yards. And I was like, I felt like Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's like, he's got the cigarette and the beer and he's like, he sits up in his chair and he's pointing at the TV screen like that. You're speaking my language here. Like I ran the single T offense in high school, which is not a passing offense. And it does not, it's very like tight formations, close pass routes, like, not very wide open passing game. Weirdly enough, like I think we were the first offense in that program's history to run the shotgun in 1997, which is outrageous. But, we ran the 2-minute offense. I remember we ran it once and we scored a touchdown. And I was like, can we just do that every drive? No? Okay. Cool. So Cam Ward, what a rise to prominence. Some of the other interesting ones here, like Lamar Jackson having such a low draft score. Like he's one notch below Alex Smith. Like Sam Bradford has a higher draft score than Jalen Hurts. Trey Lance has a higher draft score than Carson Palmer. Mac Jones has a higher draft score than Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson. Blaine Gabbert has a higher draft score than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is how friggin' nuts the draft can be and how like you can have all the numbers at your disposal. Like Jake Locker has a higher draft score than Matthew Stafford. Desmond Ridder has a higher draft score than Jay Cutler. Paxton Lynch has a higher draft score than Derek Carr. It's just wild. So Shedeur Sanders is way below Cam Ward in terms of these rankings since 2003. But where does Shedeur Sanders stack up? He is one notch below Tyrod Taylor, 2 notches below Vince Young, and 3 notches below Johnny Manziel. But he has a higher draft score than Josh Allen and Matt Ryan. But not that much higher than Jaxson Dart. He was he's ranked 65th in draft score since 2003. Jaxson Dart ranks 73rd. So Jaxson Dart has a higher draft score than Daniel Jones. Oh boy. Higher draft score than Daniel Jones and Dak Prescott. Guess where Eli Manning is on this friggin' ranking? Eli Manning is ranked below all those names I just said. Eli Manning is ranked below Drew Lock in draft score. And Jamarcus Russell, Christian Ponder, Pat White, Kevin Cobb, Colt McCoy, Kyle Trask, Jason Campbell, Clayton Tune, Sam Howell, Eli freaking Manning. And it's all because of his athleticism score. His athleticism score is horrendous. 55, which is in the red. Oh, Eli. He's one notch, ranked one spot above Dan Lefevre from Central Michigan. 2 spots above Andy Dalton. Like Andy Dalton is below Dan Lefevre. but is one notch above Mark Sanchez. And then you have Dylan Gabriel, who's right below Mark Sanchez. So interesting things. And then the two guys that I didn't mention in any of those rankings that are below all those names, below even Stetson Bennett and John Beck and Brian Boehm and Garrett Grayson and Cardale Jones, Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins. So there's something to be said about Jesus freaks who like to wear khakis. Some about them. They got God. They got God on their side. You know, that's huge. You don't factor that into the draft score. They need to have like a spirituality ranking. But Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins are the only Pro Bowlers amongst the rankings of quarterbacks drafted since 2003 to have a draft score lower than like, So who is the top prospect? Who has the top prospect grade? It's Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, 7.15, which is basically Pro Bowl talent. Running back, this is where it gets interesting because I think he's been projected and mocked to the Cowboys, which would be no bueno for Los Gigantes. I think the Broncos might also be in the mix. Steelers might be in the mix. The Raiders could be a top favorite to land him, to select him. Whichever team nabs him. Like if this draft was in 2003, Jeanty probably goes number 1 to the Titans. But it's just the way, I don't know if Saquon Barkley, like, I don't know if you can call it resetting the market. Like, did he reset the market when he was drafted at 2 and then everyone lost their lids? It's like, you're not going to see that anymore. So, but the Raiders are like the 6th pick. So I don't know that they would go that high to take him. But all I know is whatever team picks him, you have a Saquon Barkley light on your hands. So let's hope to God the friggin' Cowboys don't take him. Next highest graded prospect is Abdul Carter from Penn State, edge rusher. And then next after that, our boy, Travis Hunter, corner/wide receiver, 6.89 grade. Abdul Carter coming in, clocking in at a 7. Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, is the 4th highest graded prospect, which is interesting. Would the Giants, no. The answer is no. But, we're pretty much set at, I think Theo Johnson can be solid. Is it going to be as good as Tyler Warren? No, but you're not going to, I don't think you go with Tyler Warren when, you have the other 2 guys unless you trade down. But in terms of like positions of need, the guys that we would like to see on the team, Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, 6.71. Will Johnson, a corner, at 6.5. I honestly think that if the Giants do not go with Travis Hunter at number 3, that they probably won't prioritize corner until much later, if at all. I think it's really Travis Hunter or bust in terms of corner, but it also depends on how they really feel about Deonte Banks. I do think they let go the DB coach, maybe because of how he handled the situation with Deonte Banks. So, is that, I have a lot of theories about Banks. It's like, well, we'll get to it. So quarterback, let's kick it off with quarterback, top position of need. So, obviously we have Wilson and Winston, winning combination. Cam Ward probably should be off the board at number 1. The Titans are predicted to select him. And even though the Giants, there are a lot of people within the Miami program that said that the Giants were in love with him. Would the Giants trade up to get him? What would they have to give up? So much. So many first round picks that I just don't know if that would be worth it, especially since you're basically, Shane has claimed that he's not going to be desperate. Knowing that he's on the hot seat, he won't be desperate. But at the same time, would you trade up all that draft capital for Cam Ward only to see him sit in 2025? Like Russell Wilson didn't sign with the Giants last. This is the takeaway I get from the Russell Wilson signing. He did not sign with the Giants last season because he was not guaranteed the starting position. Whereas he was guaranteed it in Pittsburgh, but he got hurt, and that's why you saw Fields for so long. And Fields kept winning, 4-2. So it's like, but I guess the Steelers guaranteed him the starting position, and he just happened to get hurt. Giants didn't. They said, we want you to compete with Daniel, and he didn't like that. So he's been guaranteed, he's guaranteed the starting job. He's guaranteed the starting job. It was funny though, like watching the press conference, the New York media trying to repeatedly asking him, if the Giants select a quarterback, are you going to be able to mentor him? Are you going to take him under your wing? And Russell gave these very I'm going to just slowly go around that little traffic cone. Very carefully navigated his answers, but you could tell, I don't think he wants to be a mentor. I think he just does his thing, and it's fine. Just don't be a dick to the quarterback that we draft if we draft one. So, and you have Winston for 2 years. That's kind of that's the ultimate insurance plan. It's for whatever reason, you don't get the quarterback this year, or you do select a quarterback, but they're not making the strides that you were hoping for, and they sit for another year, and then, we'll see how it pans out. But, it's the reporting that goes on is just nuts. People inside the Miami program say that the Giants are in love with Cam Ward, but then the Giants were the only team that was in was the only team that saw had someone in attendance at every one of Colorado's games to watch Shedeur Sanders. So I know there are a lot of mock drafts that still have us taking Sanders at 3, and I disagree. Not when you have players like Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter still on the board. Because if we're to believe what everyone says, and the Titans are dead set on Cam Ward, and it would take a king's ransom to move him off that, you're going to have a choice between Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. Whoever the Browns pick, and if the Browns go Shedeur Sanders, then you have a real conundrum on your hands. Because it's game-wrecking edge rusher when you already have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. What does that mean for Kayvon Thibodeau? And then Travis Hunter when you already have Deonte Banks. What do you do there? For me, it's Shedeur's not that. It doesn't seem like a slam dunk. I know that the main selling point on him is that he's able to take these programs that have been historically bad and taking them to greater success. He did it at Jackson State. He did it at Colorado. And so that's the big takeaway. Completion percentage was he led the nation in completion percentage, but if we've seen anything from Daniel Jones, it's you can complete all the friggin' passes you want, but if it's not doing anything, you're not moving the ball down the field and scoring touchdowns, then what's the point? So I'm not dead set on, I'm not dead set on Shedeur Sanders. But if you are to look at their prospect grades, Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward is clearly on top as the number 1 prospect. There have been people saying that the gap between Shedeur Sanders and Jaxson Dart, who's been kind of the consensus QB3, QB4 prospect, isn't that great. The prospect grade would say differently. Shedeur is a 6.3 and Jaxson Dart's a 6.17. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks that have a prospect grade of 6.1 or higher. So we talked about Ward is the top 6.39, which will be a decent starter. Shedeur Sanders 6.3 is will be a plus starter eventually. And then you have Dart at 6.17. Right behind him is Tyler Shuck from Louisville, who's 25, but is a big dude, very injury prone. I am I'm very skittish about this guy. But I guess you could say the same about Michael Penix Jr. And then, people were like stunned that the Falcons would take him at whatever they did, 8 or 10 in last season's draft. Would we see the same thing with Tyler Shuck? I don't know. Because, Penix got hurt and then got hurt and got hurt. And he played well for the Falcons, but he also missed a ton of throws. So, I would say no on Tyler Shuck, but there are people that are saying if the Browns pass on Sanders at 2, they would then come back at the top of the second round and take Shuck. They have Kenny Pickett, Tyler Shuck. I don't know. Quinn Ewers is the next highest graded prospect, 6.15. Then you have Jalen Milroe, 6.14. Jalen Milroe has since, I want to make sure I get this right, dude. I hope I have this right. Since 2003, he has the highest athletic score. He's an elite athlete, 99, I think it was. Let me make sure I have it here. Oh, excuse me, Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor was ranked, he's tied. So there's only been 3 quarterbacks since 2003 that have a 99 athleticism score. Tyrod Taylor in 2011 out of Virginia Tech, Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma in 2019, and then Jalen Milroe in 2025 with Alabama. So Tyrod Taylor's had a fairly decent season, mostly a backup, quality spot starter. I just don't think he had opportunities to win with the Giants and couldn't come through. So kept us in games, was competitive, made some great throws, but couldn't get the dub. Kyler Murray, the Cardinals believe in him. He makes some insane plays here and there. So I think he's kind of on the up and up. But you look at right below Milroe in terms of the most athletic quarterbacks, you have Cardell Jones from Ohio State, fizzled out. Malik Cunningham from Louisville in 2023. I don't think he saw any playing. And then you have AR, Anthony Richardson. So you can be freaky deaky in the sheets. In terms of on the field, Murray had a 93 draft score, which was elite. Ranked 4th since 2003. Milroe's ranked 41st. His draft score of 81 is pretty good. So I would say, I'm telling you, I wouldn't hate having Jalen Milroe. That would pretty cool. I wouldn't hate it. He's not going to start year 1. Maybe he competes with Winston in year 2, and then if he doesn't win that competition, which not a great sign, but then you have him for year 3 to back up or compete with whoever you draft in 2026, maybe. So we're not as listen, the first 2 weeks of free agency, I was like, what is the Giants' plan here? We put all our chips in the middle of the table for Stafford, offering $50 million guaranteed per year. I guess that and we failed. So now what do? We got, the prospects are Rodgers or Wilson. And then we signed Winston. It was like, oh, okay. Hard to see Shane surviving this year along with Daboll, but Wilson, gives you better odds. So Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe with a 6.14. And then right below him is Kyle McCord, 6.13. I know our history with Syracuse quarterbacks hasn't been the best, but he put up some really big numbers for Syracuse. I want to say he threw for over 4,000 yards. So that's someone that I would maybe keep an eye on if they really, used to play at Ohio State, transferred to Syracuse. He's from Mount Laurel, New Jersey, which is closer to, it's where NFL Films is based. It's closer to Philly, but 6'3", 218. His next gen stats are average. So he's not very athletic and production scores aren't high. So, was second team all ACC last year, led the FBS with an ACC record 4,779 passing yards. school record of 391 completions and ranked 5th with a school record of 34 passing touchdowns. Set school records with attempts and completion percentage. So played behind CJ Stroud at Ohio State. So, I think that's the floor for the Giants in terms of quarterbacks. Like if they have to draft one and they, for whatever reason, the way the chips fall, they're not able to get a Sanders or a Dart or a Shuck, or, I wouldn't want Shuck, but I don't think I would want Ewers. But if they get to a point where all those dudes are off the board and McCord's there, and you've already kind of addressed defensive line, you've already addressed offensive line, you've already addressed linebacker, maybe maybe that's would I be butthurt if that's a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick? No, that's a decent pick. Dylan Gabriel is interesting. He's a little on the older side. I think he's like 24, 25. He's played like 7 years of college football, which I don't understand how that works. But he has a 6.1 grade. I think the player comp on him is like Steve Young, I want to say. I could be completely wrong about that. I probably am. What was the player comp on Kyle McCord? Okay. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click here. There we go. Let's see here. Mitchell Trubisky. It's a tough comp. That's a tough comp. What is the comp on Milroe? That makes me want to rethink. Yeah, I'm kind of a hard pass on Riley Leonard and Will Howard. Of the two, maybe I would consider Will Howard. The player comp on Milroe, Cordell Stewart. I don't fucking hate that, man. I don't hate that one bit. Cordell had some really good years. And with a guy that's athletic, that kind of sparks my interest. Could you see Jalen Milroe doing what Slash did with Pittsburgh? Where first year he might be getting snaps here and there, but he also plays running back. He's also running the ball. He's also catching the ball. Like, let's get fucking nuts, man. Why not? So I'm kind of a big fan of Milroe. So those are quarterbacks. Jaxson Dart, will he be available when we're up on the clock at the top of round 2? He has numerous season and career records, including the Rebels' all-time lead in wins, passing yards, and total offense. Milroe, is he a round 2 candidates? If you look basically, some people think he should be first round based on his athleticism and personality. Will Howard in round 3. I thought he was more of a round 4 guy, but the report on him is he has functional mobility, arm talent, and decision-making skills. And then he's tough as nails. What's the player comp on him? 5.9 prospect grade, average backup or special teamer. His next gen stats, though, across the board, put him from a production standpoint in total score is the 6th best quarterback. His athletic score is 10th. So he's considerably better than Kyle McCord if you're looking at next gen stats. From Downingtown, Pennsylvania, 6'4", 236. Ooh, baby. Now that is a specimen. So maybe I'm out on McCord now. Will Howard. Yeah, so I guess if you miss on Sanders, Dart, and Milroe, would you take a flyer on Will Howard? Why not? So that's quarterback. Offensive line, we do have Andrew Thomas starting at left tackle under contract for a lot more years. But I'll tell you what, dude, the injuries, it's just like he just can't play a full season. So offensive tackle has to be a top priority. Fortunately, like I mentioned in the free agency recap, there are a bunch of really not like premium tackle talent, but like good enough to be starters. And we'll take average starter at this point because we had to live with Evan Neal for a few years. Obviously, we have Runyon at left guard, JMS at center. Right guard, it looks like you'd have to give the nod to GVR over Evan Neal. And that's exactly where Evan Neal should be, is right guard. And then you have Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle with Forsyth and Hudson kind of providing some depth there at the tackle position. But my God, yeah, you definitely need to think about, because, you know, we talked about Illuminor, going to be a free agent soon. And if he plays similar to how he played last year, even better, his price just keeps going up and up and up. So would love to have him back, but also don't want to have to overpay. And at this point, maybe you do overpay. You know, if you get a guy that plays pretty good his first year, even better his second year, just why not? And he's a Giants fan. So I think you should probably consider prioritize extending him. You know, I guess we pursued Will Freeze, top guard on the market, but he signed a 5-year, $87.7 million contract with the Vikings. In terms of the guards with the top prospect grades, you have Donovan Jackson, who, so I'm going based off of prospect grades from NFL.com's prospects profiles, draft profiles, which are typically compiled by analyst Lance Zierlein. But I'm also looking at Dane Brugler's top big board, draft board, the top 100 prospects. He's with The Athletic. So Brugler has Donovan Jackson as a tackle, and NFL.com has him as a guard. The way I read that is, well, he's got flexibility. He can play guard, he can play tackle, and that's right up our alley. It's like, if you really, don't want to have to take a guard and a tackle in the draft, then you might want to take a guy that can play guard and tackle, and Donovan Jackson fits that bill. There's another guy on this list who not as highly graded, but also seems to be in that kind of guard tackle swing type position. So he's the top graded guard, at least according to NFL.com. And then you have Tyler Booker, who's right behind him from Alabama, 6.38. Tate Ratledge is someone who caught my eye. He's a guard from Georgia, 6.28 prospect grade. Marcus Mbo, who I think in a lot of my mock drafts, I find myself gravitating towards him, 6.25 prospect grade. And you have Miles Frazier from LSU, Joe Huber from Wisconsin, and Joshua Gray from Oregon State. So say you miss on a lot of those top guys, because they're going maybe round 1, round 2, and you decided that you wanted to go quarterback with one of those picks. My guess is you could still probably land a high quality guard in the 3rd round, at the top of the 3rd round. You got 2 3rd round picks. I mean, that's the other thing about this that I kind of skimmed over that I shouldn't have. My apologies. But like, looking at our draft picks, you have 5 draft picks that are almost in the top 100. If the 4th round pick is the 3rd pick in the 4th round, it's the 105th pick overall. You essentially have 5 draft picks in the top 100. If you can't come away with 5 prospects in the top 100 that are graded out as, starters or will be starters within 2 years, I mean, that's yet again, like, added to the list, the ever-growing list of reasons why Joe Schoen should not continue as general manager. Those 5 picks right there, rounds 1 through 4, if he can nail those, and they're all contributors in maybe not all, but 3 of the 5 are major contributors in 2025. You need to win. You need to produce wins. It's like we had a really good draft class in 2024, 3 wins. So yeah, that's the guard position. Then when you look at tackle, I mean, they're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 6 or 7 guards that could be considered starters, or, starters within 2 years. So, Booker, Dane Brugler has Tyler Booker as like the 18th top prospect. Marcus Mbo from Purdue is the 66th top prospect. And then Tate Ratledge is the 69th top prospect. So ideally, Ratledge or Mbo are the two guys that you don't want to let get past you, or you don't want to, end up not getting like that. To me, you get one of those two guys and you're in a really good spot. You start to get into like Frazier, Huber, and Gray, and it's like, all right, don't hate it, but it's like not ideal. Then tackle position, you have Armand Membu from Missouri, 6.49. He's the top graded offensive tackle, 8th top prospect according to Bruler. Will Campbell from LSU is the 6th top prospect according to Dane Bruler, but is graded as a prospect grade below Armand Membu, 6.44. And you have Kelvin Banks Jr., who can be a guard, but also a tackle. So that's another option that you could look at if you don't want to do a guard and a tackle, and you're looking to get a guy with versatility and flexibility. Kelvin Banks Jr. could be in the mix. Again, though, considering what the first pick is projected to be, the way I'm looking at it is I think you prioritize guard over tackle, right? Because you have a starting tackle, you're starting guard, there are less potential starting guards in the draft. So I think guard probably is the pick in the second round, at the top of the second round. If you go Shedeur Sanders in the first round, you definitely want to get a guard in the top of the second, because I think most of them will be gone at the top of the third. Do you really want to take that chance of missing on like Ratledge and Mbo? Tackles, I think you can wait. Obviously a lot of top tackles will go at the top of the draft, but I mean, there are a decent amount of pretty well graded prospects. I think NFL.com has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So there's almost 20 offensive tackles that have prospect grades that would indicate that they could potentially start within the first 2 years. So even if you see the top 5, even the top 10 go, you still have guys like Erante Ursary from Minnesota, 6'6", 339. He's the 50th top prospect, according to Dane Bruler. You have Cameron Williams from Texas. He's the 63rd top prospect, 6'5", 335, with a 6.14 grade. And then Jonah Savinea from Arizona. He's listed as a guard by Dane Bruler, but he's an offensive tackle on NFL.com's draft profiles. So that's the other guy, Kelvin Banks, Jonah Savinea, and Kelvin Banks Jr. Well, I already said that one. Donovan Jackson. My bad. Donovan Jackson, Kelvin Banks Jr., and Jonas Savinea. Those are the three that have kind of jumped out at me in terms of the offensive tackles and offensive line. In terms of the defensive line, obviously added some veteran depth, which is all good, all great, but would love to have someone that can come in and really form just a terrifying duo with Dexter Lawrence. 13 of the top 100 prospects on Dane Bruler's big board are defensive linemen. So very deep draft. And so there's not like quarterback, it's like, whoa, there's only so many. And guards, there's only so many that really, you look at them and you think, okay, they can make an impact right away. Defensive line, it's like, look how many guys have a starter level grade. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, and then you have another 11 that can be a starter in the first year or two. So I'm not opposed to going like, and I said this before, offensive guard, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, edge. And hell, if you want to go 2 D tackles in this draft, I'm fine with that too. We're not going to get I don't think we're going to get a Mason Graham. Obviously, he's the 4th ranked prospect overall. But, Derek Harmon's in play in the second round. Kenneth Grant could be in play in the second round. They both have pretty good grades where they are projected to be plus starters. But you go down the list here and it's like the last, I think you have to draw a line in the sand. And I think that line is Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee. He's the 78th top prospect, 6'2", 295, 6.16 prospect grade. So I don't think you want to get to that point. It's like if he's the last one on your board remaining, then I think you got to take him. But I mean, there's definitely the guy that the guys that I like, that I personally like, that I could see us having the opportunity to take. Ole Miss is JJ Pigs, butchering that, but he's a fun dude to watch. I liked him, but there are Shamar Turner's interesting, 6'4", 300, 6.32 prospect grade from Texas A&M, 56th top prospect. I think he's in play. TJ Sanders from South Carolina with a 6.3 prospect grade, 60th top prospect, 6'4", 284. And then my personal favorite, the guy that I really hope we get, regardless if even if we've already drafted a D tackle, D lineman, Dion Walker from Kentucky, 6.2 prospect grade, 76th top prospect. He's 6'7", 340. It's like DeForest Buckner type level physicality. Can you imagine being an offensive lineman and walking up to the line and seeing Dexter Lawrence, sexy Dexy, and Dion Walker at 6'7", 340, and you have to block? What are you going to do there? What the fuck are you going to do there? DeForest Buckner, 6'7", 295. This Dion Walker is 50 pounds heavier than him. Oh, baby. I think I'd be so psyched if we were able to get him in the mix. So, the most polarizing one in terms of like the biggest disparity between the NFL.com prospect grade and Dane Brugler's big board is Jordan Phillips, D tackle from Maryland. He's ranks the 73rd top prospect by Brugler, but it has a 5.84 prospect grade, which is, basically equivalent to a backup or special teamer. So very interesting. Kind of hoping that we don't strictly go by Brugler on that one. Let me see what the player comp is on Dale Walker. He's from Detroit, Michigan. He's 5th in terms of production score, but 37th in terms of athleticism score. Freshman All-American, All-SEC freshman team in 2022, second team All-SEC in 2023, third team All-SEC in 2024. And his NFL comparison is Jordan Phillips, who was, I think, on the Giants before they traded him to the Cowboys, right? No, he's with the Dolphins. I'm thinking of someone else. No, I think we acquired him. Didn't we acquire him? And then we traded him to the Cowboys? Yeah. So he signs with us, the New England Giants. Oh my God. So it was kind of a later free agency pickup. He had played with the Buffalo Bills, was on the IR. We signed him in April, and then we traded him for like a 7th rounder in August before the season started. And then the Cowboys placed him on the IR, and then they released him in November, and he signed back with the Bills. So Jordan Phillips, he's played 7 years in the league. It's not bad. Played with a bunch of teams in 7 years. Bills, Dolphins, Cardinals, and Cowboys. And he did have a pretty decent year in 2023, but obviously cut short by the injury. But so now I'm not as crazy. I'm not crazy about that player comp. And then in terms of edge rushers, obviously I have Abdul Carter, Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart, Mike Green, Mikael Williams, James Pierce Jr., Donovan Izirko-Aku, JT Tuimaluau, Jack Sawyer, Landon Jackson, Jordan Birch, Nick Skirton, Josiah Stewart, Ashton Gillott, Princely, and Kyle Kennard. So there's the edge rusher class also very deep. Of those guys, I'm partial to Landon Jackson. I think he's a great story. 6'6", 273. Kind of gives off, I'm sure this is not right, but Max Crosby vibes. I think he has alopecia. So no eyebrows, no hair, kind of similar to, what's his name? Ryan Shazier from Pittsburgh. His next gen stats pretty good. Second highest athletic score, and his total score is 6th among edge rushers. So second team All SEC last season, first team All SEC in 2023. His NFL comparison is Logan Hall. Oh, okay. Logan Hall was his second round pick, top of the second round, and has played fairly well with the Bucks. Not a ton of, he had career high 5.5 sacks in 2024, 6 tackles for loss, 10 QB hits, but yet had a more valuable 2023. Okay. But, where is he projected to be taken? If you can get him in the second round, I don't know. But if you get him later, third round maybe, that'd be a nice little trio with Kayvon, Burns, and Jackson. The other guy from this group. So if you don't go Abdul Carter with the second pick, right? Because you go Abdul Carter, you're not looking at any other edges for the rest of the draft. But I don't think Shamar Stewart would be available at the top of the second round. That was another one. He looks filthy. Disruptor, 6'5", 281. The other guy in this group, so other than Landon Jackson, I don't know. So fitting to draft like Princely Umanamilan, whatever. So I heard Jordan Birch being kicked around as too. Jordan Birch getting kicked around too. 6'6", 285. Says defensive line, D tackle and edge, and then corner. Again, it really boils down to this. It's Travis Hunter or nothing, in my opinion. You're going to go, if you don't get Travis Hunter at 3, I don't think you don't need to go corner in round 2 or 3. It feels like that's a day 3 type thing. There's a pretty decent amount of corners in this draft with decent prospect grades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So there's like 20 corners that could be starters within the first 2 years, according to these prospect grades. The ones that I have found myself coming across in a lot of the mock drafts. Siobhan Revel Jr. Out of East Carolina, 6.34 prospect grade. Darian Porter from Iowa State, 6.19 prospect grade. And I want to say Zy Alexander from LSU, 6.15. And then Kobe Bryant. Cobee Bryant from Kansas, a Jayhawk, 6.1. So, that being said, Porter is the 99th top prospect according to Brugler. Kobe Bryant's 96th. Kobe's a little undersized, 6 foot, 175. That kind of has Cordell Flott type numbers. Quincy Riley was another name that's been batted around. He's 5'10", 192, 77th top prospect. So, that seems like a position that you could probably wait on to get later on in day 2 or 3. And then linebacker, linebacker's a very interesting question mark. It's like you got your guys, Bobby O and Micah, and they're a pretty good duo when healthy. But Bobby Okereke took a major step back last year. People are saying he quit in the Buccaneers game. But that's kind of hard to believe considering he played with like a friggin' cracked rib in 2023. Micah McFadden makes plays. He's made more plays. It feels like he's getting better every year. But can you do better? Can you upgrade there? I don't know. In a lot of the mock drafts, I somehow came away with Jahad Campbell from Alabama, 6.34 prospect grade. 23rd top prospect, but it feels like I don't know that you're going to get him in top round two. Another guy that I was looking at, Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma, Sooner, 6.24 prospect grade, 6'4", 243, big guy on the bigger side. Don't hate that. And then Chris Paul Jr., aka Pooh, from Ole Miss, 6.22 prospect grade. He's the one, he rounded out the top 100th top prospect. He is not the son of Chris Paul of State Farm fame. So we'll finish things off with a mock draft. Everyone's favorite thing, mock drafts. There's been a bajillion. So instead of trying to collect them all, I ran it through the old generative AI chatbot machine. A lot of people like to use ChatGPT. I went with perplexity.ai. And I got to say, interesting. First of all, don't ever fully blindly trust AI. That's rule number one, because I caught a lot of mistakes. Make sure that you review it and use your brain and not just copy and paste and go with it, because there's a lot of stuff that just kind of seeps in there. And you're like, this feels like they have not taken a lot of the recent developments into consideration. But with that being said, there's a couple scenarios. At number 3, we could trade up according to the Gen AI chatbot. A trade up for a quarterback. Again, we've talked about it. Doesn't seem very likely. Seems like you're going to have to give up multiple future firsts, and to give up so much for a guy that's not going to start year 1. May start year 2, and then he starts year 3 and he's like, okay, it's like, I don't know that, And again, it's like Ernie Accorsi made the decision to pull the trade for Eli Manning, who did not have a very high draft score, but mostly it was due to the fact that he's just not athletic. Or you could trade down from number 3. I personally don't see them moving at all. And I don't know why they would move, because I don't see how you can be presented with either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and trade down. You cannot go wrong with either one of those guys. And you just either have to make it work with your current situation, or you can get creative. Kayvon Thibodeau. Is it possible that you can then trade him after drafting Abdul Carter? So that's who the Perplexity.ai, the Gen AI chatbot had us going with at Big 3, which I don't see that happening. I have not seen any mock drafts that have given us Abdul Carter at 3. I can't see Abdul Carter falling past 1 and 2. It feels like the Titans at one point were thinking about, there was some speculation that they were going to go with Abdul Carter. Then, of course, there was that whole during the scouting combine, like his right foot is about to fall off or some nonsense. But the Titans seem to be in on Cam Ward. That's most likely. But if they don't go Cam Ward, they would probably go Abdul Carter. At 2, you have the Browns. If the Browns don't go Shedeur Sanders, they can go Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. It seems like they're leaning towards Abdul Carter because they would want to use Travis Carter or Travis Hunter more on offense than defense, which is kind of wild. He's a consensus top edge rusher, posted a 92.9 PFF pass rush grade in 2024 with 12 sacks and 21 QB hits. He's a surefire Pro Bowl talent. Played in all games. His freshman year, was a freshman All-American. Was a finalist for the Freshman of the Year award. 2023, he was first team All Big Ten. And then last season, He switched from an off-ball linebacker to defensive end after the departure of Chop Robinson and Disa Isaac, and was a first-team AP All-American, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Lineman of the Year, first-team All-Big Ten, and a finalist for the Bednarik Award, which is the nation's top defender, a Lombardi Award, and the Ted Hendricks Award, which goes to the nation's top defensive end. He led the FBS with 23 and a half tackles for loss. So, again, if he's there and available at 3, you take him. I don't think there's any question there. I just don't think he'll be available. He ranks 7th in the nation with 12 sacks. Here's the big red flag on Abdul Carter. You can say the right foot, fine. Doesn't seem to bother him. But for me, this is it. His hometown is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he is well known to be an Eagles fan. He grew up in North Philly, has supported the Eagles his entire life. He enjoyed watching his hometown team win the second Super Bowl earlier in the year and attended the game with his dad. He has stated that he appreciated being able to enjoy his final year as an Eagles fan before entering the NFL, where he will be loyal to whichever team drafts him. And I'm here to say, I don't think so, dude. I don't think if you're a lifelong fan of a team that you are just going to not want to eventually play for them. So that's but then again, you draft him and he becomes a Giants legend. Oof. But that does give me pause. Like, oh, he's an Eagles fan. He's from Philly. Like, how's that going to pan out? But I mean, you've seen it before. This is a horrible example, but I think Ricky Proehl grew up a Giants fan, and then he was dominating as a Ram, and he would repeatedly kill us when we played the Rams. But Abdul Carter's production score 95 ranks tops among edges. His total score is tops among edges at 90, and his athleticism score of 83 is 6th best. So, and the pass rush could use a boost. We were top 10 in sacks. We were first in sacks for, I want to say, the first half of the year, and then of course you lose Dexter Lawrence. Burns is knocked up. Kayvon's knocked up, and it's like, your numbers start to plummet. We had the 8th fewest pressures. Our pressure rate was about average. Our knockdown rate was average to below average, and we were below average in hurries and hurry rates. So, I'm all for more pass rushers to wreak havoc. Carter has an explosive first step burst and ability to flatten around the arc, align with his style play would align with Shane Bowen's aggressive 3-4 system. I found this funny. Amongst his weaknesses, one of his weaknesses, according to Lance Zierlein, is he displays some ankle tightness in his upfield rush. Who notices that, and who has the balls to write that down and publish it? Get inside spin gives tackles the blues. That's a great strength. Great strength. His closing burst and athleticism makes it him hard to shake for quarterbacks. No false steps or wasted motion in his rush get off, which is great. He strikes first to gain the early advantage at the point of attack, and agile and sharp, which is all great. The one weakness that kind of stood out that was a little concerning was he can be engulfed and neutralized by strength and length, and has smaller margins for error as a tackler. But if he's there, I think there's no question. Now, you take him, what do you do with Kayvon? I think you look at him as a possible trade candidate, and maybe it's on draft day. I know there's some people saying, like, if you do go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter with the first pick, they need to seriously consider trading back up into the first round to get, I guess, Sanders if he falls far enough, which I don't think he will, or Jaxson Dart, who either top of the second round or bottom of the first round. It's like if you're hearing whispers that he might go at the bottom of the first round, which I don't think there are many teams at the bottom of the first round. Like, I think the Steelers are at 21. Would you trade back up to 21 to take Dart? And would you have to give the Steelers Kayvon if you already have Abdul Carter in the mix? Just thinking out loud. And the alternative here is obviously Travis Hunter. So, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Like if Carter's off the board, Ward's off the board, and you have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter staring you in the face, you take Travis Hunter 100% of the time. And what does that mean for Deonte Banks? Well, that means that then Deonte Banks is a trade candidate. And maybe you can use him as a chip to move back up and get someone else that you're targeting that would not fall to you normally. So, just because you have two solid corners doesn't mean you shouldn't get a third corner, because even if you keep Banks, you think about, a lot of teams are running 3 and 4 wide receiver sets a lot more. So then Drew Phillips becomes your CB4. And that's like you have 4 of the best quarterbacks in the friggin' league. No one will be able to throw on you, dude. And then if you get those D tackles like we want in the draft, then no one can run on you. And then we're a top 10 unit, and it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback. It does not matter. The AI had Jaxson Dart, Ole Miss, with the top pick in the round 2. 6'2", 223. His production score ranks 3rd. Athleticism score ranks 8th. His total score puts him 4th. He was the Gatorade National Player of the Year coming out of high school, led the nation with almost 4,700 passing yards and a Utah State record of 67 passing touchdowns. Played in a few games at USC. And then, of course, Caleb Williams comes around, so he transfers. He was first team All SEC last season, set school career records in passing yards, total offense, led the FBS in yards per attempt, ranked 3rd in the FBS in passing yards, and was the Gator Bowl MVP in the win over Duke. I don't know what to think about this NFL comparison, but Gardner Minshew, like Minshew mania, can provide some exciting plays. I think he kind of got a raw deal in Vegas. He played fairly well in Indianapolis. Obviously didn't pan out in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence in the mix, but his strengths, pretty good situational decision maker on 3rd downs, which is always good. Throws with adequate accuracy and drive velocity between the hashes, recognizes potential trouble and gets away with it. That's something that has been a knock on Shedeur Sanders, where it's like he takes a lot of sacks, thinks he can always make the big play, probably hangs in too much waiting for something to develop and takes a sack. He can beat man coverage. Jaxson Dart can beat man coverage, very accurate with back shoulder fades, which is something that I've been harping on for Giants quarterbacks for a long time. And when the quarterback does it, it's like, well, let's just do that every down. And is able to get across the full field of progression when he needs to, which is good to see. Struggles against the zone, has lazy footwork, and is somewhat inconsistent in his reads, lacks delivery quickness, and his throws feel very labored. So, they said the same thing about Brock Purdy. I looked at Brock Purdy's draft profile and it was like labored delivery. And it's like, yeah, but the guy's like deadly accurate, so I guess you can get away with that when you can put it on a dime. Sorry to bring up the D word. So, he seems like a guy that you give him 2 years, give Winston the reins at the beginning. You can have an open competition in 2026 training camp, best man wins, but I'm fine with Winston starting and then Dart backing up. The alternate pick here is Derek Harmon, the D tackle from Oregon. He was 19th on Dane Brugler's big board. He has lateral explosiveness. This is a quote from Brugler. There wasn't a more disruptive interior defensive lineman in college football in 2024. Whoa. So count me excited. if it's between Harmon and Dart, I'm going Harmon. I'm telling you, you don't need to force a pick here. If you have the ability to make that defense a top 10 unit, you do it. This 2025 offensively, it's like you're going to be slightly better because you have a slightly better quarterback and, with a defense that can keep teams to under 20 points. I know we averaged like 13 or 14 points over the past 2 seasons. With a Russell Wilson or even a Jameis Winston, I think he can get to 20 points. So, you're going to be competitive with the quarterbacks that you have. And now it's just a matter of like, well, we just need to get really good defensively. So I'd rather go Harmon than Dart there. And even if you do take Harmon in round 2, do not rule out taking another D tackle later. Round 3, the AI has West Virginia guard Wyatt Millam at pick 65. He allowed the 4th most sacks in 2024, but he's a 6'6", 315-pound mauler who had a 90.3% pass block win rate. So he was at tackle, but projects as a guard in the NFL. Oh no, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Obviously, he didn't allow the 4th most sacks. They said the Giants allowed the 4th most sacks in the NFL last year. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think this is where AI gets a little funky because I don't think they did. I mean, the offensive line caught a lot of crap last season. But I mean, if, when you had the starting 5 you wanted, meaning like Andrew Thomas is in the lineup, they played well, the best that they've played in a long time. So, we gave up the 12th most sacks. We have 48 sacks, which, still not great. Jesus, the Bills only gave up 14 sacks, but they have Josh Allen. So, Wyatt Millam, having a 6'6", 315-pound guard is a bit much, but he's power and gap run concepts, which the complements, our offense. And then the alternates here, there's a few alternates. One alternate is Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. I don't think he falls to the 3rd round, and I think given we have Tyrone Tracy there, I don't know what AI is thinking there. But the other alternative is the guy that I talked about before, Georgia guard Tate Ratledge, 6'6", 320, is a self-described dirtbag. Yeah, I think we need dirtbags. We need guys. Forget hog mollies. That was all well and fun for a hot minute, but we need some dirtbags on that in the trenches. Guys that are willing to mix it up. I mean, we kind of had it. We thought we had it with Will Hernandez and Shane Lemieux. And, in retrospect, we probably should not have moved on so quickly from Will Hernandez, and Shane Lemieux was just an injury thing. I think he just kept getting injured too much. But Tate Ratledge, according to this, has the necessary tools for a decade-long pro career if he stays healthy. So I think I'm more in on a Tate Ratledge than I am a Wyatt Millam. And if we do not decide to go guard here, which, I can't, there are only so many guards that are going to make an impact right away. 6 or 7, maybe 8. So if you don't pick a guard in your first 3 rounds, I don't think you're going to get a guard later than that. We do have 2 third round picks, right? So we have the pick at 65 and the pick at 99. So the other pick that you could go with here at 99 is the Chris Paul Jr., Pooh. Recorded 112 tackles in 2024 and excelled in zone coverage with an 85.3 coverage grade. He's a thumper with sideline to sideline range, which I love. So, it's just a matter of like, did we get that guard yet? Because guard is definitely top priority, a higher priority than linebacker. Even with, Bobby Okereke's, the rumors about him. Someone was spreading a rumor that he's a surprise cut candidate. That he might be a trade candidate. I was just like, I don't know. I think he returns the form this year. And I think Micah if he stays healthy, will play well. But, that's where if you haven't picked a guard by this point in round 3, then you would probably, I think you would have to take one at pick 99. But if you do, you got Pooh from Ole Miss. Round 4, they have us going with cornerback Quincy Riley out of Louisville. He's a 6'1" press man specialist, allowed just 0.89 yards per coverage snap in 2024. Holy moly. He can compete with Drew Phillips for CB3 duties. This is, again, I think this is a case of like, if you don't get Travis Hunter at 3, right? This could be the corner that you select, as long as you've checked off the boxes on a lot of other stuff. Guard is something that you need to get done in the first 3 rounds. Offensive tackle, you could probably wait. I think corner, you could probably wait. Edge, you could probably wait. Even defensive line, you could wait. But guard has to be addressed. And, you're hoping that you get that QB in the first 3 rounds as well. Some alternates for that 4th round pick at pick 105. Again, these are the 5 picks that we have to bring in and nail in terms of getting guys that are on Dane Brugler's board and have prospect grades that project them to be starters. So you have Quincy Riley at Louisville. Another one to consider here is Shamar Turner, the D tackle from Texas A&M. He's 6'4", 300. And prides himself on being the aggressor and relies on his initial twitch, fierce hands, and combative mentality. Yeah. What is the player comp on him? Let's see what we got here. Mamdi Madabuki. Oh, boy. Being an African, you'd think I'd know how to pronounce these better. 2-time Pro Bowler. Okay. I don't hate that. He's really taken off in the past 2 seasons. So if that's what we can expect, I like that a lot. Yeah, Shamar Turner. Hell yeah. Has the 10th highest total draft score from Next Gen Stats amongst D tackles. His athleticism score puts him 8th. His freshman all SEC team, and then second team all SEC in 2023. Okay. Cost his team way too many 15-yard penalties during his career. Sources tell us he's going to be a great tester. He's got a lot of potential if he can keep his temper under control. Reminds me of, who is that D end that we had? Damon Moore or something like that. That guy just 15-yarders out the ace. And then another 4th round pick to consider, Jordan Birch, edge out of Oregon, 6'6", 285, number 51 on Brugler's big board. Somewhat of a one-trick pony as a pass rusher, but he creates pocket push with power. So that's someone that if you were, that's someone that you can bring in on passing downs and he gives you that extra boost. Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited for our defense. I really am. I think our defense is going to take a big step forward. Round 5, the AI bot has defensive tackle out of Virginia Tech, Aeneas Peebles. Tallied 7.5 sacks and 18 hurries using a lethal swim move. Whew, been there, my friend. High motor rotational piece with starter upside. And an alternative to consider is cornerback Mello Dotson out of Kansas. Again, if you've gotten to round 5 and you haven't taken a corner yet, I'm okay with that. But if you've already taken a corner, no, thank y'all. Round 7 got a little wacky. This is where it's like, AI, what are you sipping on over there? Round 7, they have us taking UConn offensive tackle Chase Lunt, a developmental tackle, which it feels like that's all we took for so long before we took Andrew Thomas. It was like every single friggin' tackle we took was a developmental tackle. Matt Parrott. And, oh my God, the list grows. 6'8", 340, has raw power and hand usage. Make him a project behind Jermaine Illuminor. So I don't know that I want to wait that long But then again, would you take him? I would prefer to maybe go round 4 or 5 for a tackle. But if you can get a guy that has the ability to be a starter in 2 years in round 7, you got to take it. Because I think Chase Lunt, pull up the prospect grades real quick. Where is it? Right here? Yeah, there we go. He had a 6, which is below what a good backup with potential to develop into starter. So personally, I wouldn't wait that long to get the tackle. So I think I'm out on doing the tackle in the 7th round. I would probably go tackle in the 5th round. So you're looking at best player available in round 1, whether that's Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Depending on who you pick there, if you pick the edge, you don't have to worry about picking another edge. If you pick corner, you have to worry about picking another corner, and that frees you up to pick. You got to go in round 2 or 3, you got to go guard. And then I think in round 4 or 5, you got to go tackle. And then this, plenty of D tackles to fill in from there, right? So, I mean, yeah, we got a couple of round 3rd rounders. So you could maybe go D tackle and one of the 3rd round picks. And then I would throw another one in round 7, probably. AI like Craig Woodson, safety from California in round 7. Okay. Yeah, they didn't take Jevon Holland into consideration there, so we can cancel that out. And then Curtis Rourke from Indiana. A dual threat flyer, threw for 3,200 yards and rushed for 482 in 2024. Low risk backup candidate. Yeah. I mean, honestly, why waste a pick on a 7th round quarterback unless you think he's the next Brock Purdy? But I think you're fine. If you're taking Dart at the top of round 2, you're not taking another quarterback in round 7, obviously. So if you don't take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, I still don't think you have to force anything after that. It's like you either get one in the first 2 rounds. I don't think any of the ones that we've talked about will fall to round 3. It's like, why would you take a Dylan Gabriel in round 3 or 4 when you can get a better high impact player? And then the last round 7 alternate pick from AI is Jalen Rivers, offensive lineman from Miami, 6'5", 325, has guard and tackle experience, but he's endured some injuries over the years. So that kind of scares me a little bit. So that's the old mock draft. A lot of options here, but I'm here to tell you, do not panic. I mean, if they announce Shedeur Sanders' name, I'm gonna support him, obviously. But I don't think I've ever come across not that I've been doing this long, but I don't think I've ever come across a prospect that has more varying opinions about where he should go or what he'll do, and so put a bow on everything. Russell Wilson plays well-ish, stays healthy the whole year, and we go 8-9 and we miss the playoffs by a game. What's the plan? It's like I'm sadly excited for 8-9 and just missing the playoffs. But what does that mean? Does that mean that they bring Russell Wilson back another year? Does that mean that they hand the torch to Jameis Winston? Does that mean they if you're 8-9, you're not in the top 5, top 10 draft slots to pick a top quarterback prospect? Everyone keeps saying that the 2026 quarterback class is better than the 2025 class, but I've only seen 3 or 4 guys that have really stood out to me, and one of those guys might return. Arch Manning is only going to be a junior. Like, he might want to just stay and win a championship with Texas. So it's not a lock that he'll be available in 2026. You got that guy Nico from Tennessee, and maybe one or two other guys, but like it's not like there's this overwhelming, we're spoiled with a luxurious class in 2026, but it'd be interesting to see, like, even if you go 7-10, what do you do then? Because it's like, oh, we went 7-10 and we lost 2 to 3 games by a score. Okay, but so then you're going to bring back Russell Wilson and run it back with Daboll and Shane. That's where it's going to get interesting. Because I do think if they go and win 5 or 6 games, I think that's enough for Mara to be like, I know this is an improvement over last season in 2024, but like, if you stay healthy, like, I cannot imagine a world where all our key players stay healthy for the majority, if not the entire season, and we win 5 or 6 games. And if that happens, there's no question in anyone's mind that we need to move on and clean house. I think even if you experience a lot of injuries similar to what happened in 2024 and 2023, and you win 5 or 6 games, and there are 3 or 4 games that were decided by a score, you do not bring them back. Do not bring them back. No. It's where it gets tricky is 7-10 and 8-9. If everyone's healthy and you go 7-10, I don't know if that's good enough. 8-9, is that good enough? In my head, it's like, how the hell is John Mara going to justify moving on from a regime that went 8-9 and just missed the playoffs? When, in all honesty, like, they just made the playoffs in 2022 at 9-7-1. And they very easily could have missed the playoffs in 2022 if, like, the ball bounces differently against Washington. And there was one other game where it's like they could have lost. So, that's where it'll be super interesting. Because I'm like so locked and loaded on that number. 8-9. 8-9 missed the playoffs. I mean, yeah. So, and it's like, I've already said I don't want them. I don't want them anymore. But we go 8-9 and we just missed the playoffs. It's like, it's going to make it so hard to move on. Especially when, like, if Wilson's your guy, do you go back and sign him for another 1-year contract that's incentive laden? I don't know. So very interesting. But I mean, Joe Schoen has the opportunity in those 5 picks in the top 100 to really infuse this talent with not just starters, but quality depth pieces that at least give you the next GM coach a good starting point, But yeah, I'm I don't want to say I've done a total 180, but I am getting more excited about the 2025 season more than I was about the 2024 season. That's for sure. Especially at the end of the season. I was just like, I just didn't think that you would have a ton of players interested in coming here in free agency. And it's like, are we going to see the Joe Schoen from 2024 in the 2025 draft, or are we going to see the Joe Schoen from the 2022, 2023 draft? I don't know. I mean, he seemed to learn from his mistakes in the 2024 offseason and avoided that for the most part in 2025. Can he continue with the 2025 draft? He has to. So, all right. That's the episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And the next Giants episode will be after the draft, probably. Draft 24th to the 26th. I'll probably have a review, recap, what have you, that following Monday or Tuesday, I would think. Next up, in terms of order, it could either be Mets free agency recap / season preview recap of the first 3 weeks of the season. Got to do a lot of catching up on the Mets. And then we have the recap of the biggest stories and trends from March 2025. So, until then, adios, muchachos.